logic would dictate the Waffle Party is similar, but different only in the sense that it's waffle. We're entering our flop era.
Shit's bleak out here. All right.
18 plus, who wants to get milked?
It's kind of quality we have here. Debate this.
I need the edge. I need what the raw, unfiltered internet can bring you.
This is probably only going to be the third or fourth dumbest thing I've said today.
That's for nobody.
Just out there raw dogging the internet.
Way more hog than I expected.
It's about as much hog as I anticipated.
This is going to be one of those episodes, isn't it?
Here comes the cow. Here comes the cow.
All right, let's get this over with so we can play Magic.
Hello and welcome to Debate This, the show where no one is right, but someone is definitely wrong. In this show, we take time out of our busy adult lives to talk about comic books, video games, and how we ask that you enjoy each flavor text equally and not show preference for any over the others.
That's a good reference. I get that reference.
That's good. Yeah.
Well, so yeah, if that sentence stirred anything within you, then you know today we're going to talk all about what just might be one of the best series out right now, and that is Severance on Apple TV, or it's Apple TV Plus or Apple Plus TV, whatever. It's Apple TV.
It's Apple TV Plus.
It is Apple TV Plus.
Jesus,
Okay.
for sure. It
Apple
is. Why
TV
not?
is the device. Apple TV
Mhm.
Plus is the subscription service. Glad to
Thanks
be-
for helping.
That
Kyle.
will be my biggest contribution to this flavor text.
Tuxedo mask his way out of here.
Yeah.
So just at the top of this, this is all thanks in part to Patreon member Sharkbait and their partner. They have commissioned this episode so that we're going to run you through what Severance is, overviews of the two seasons so far, probably get a bit weird and dystopian with what's going on there and some thoughts there. But the big thing here is that if you are trying to get us, your friends here at Debate This Cast, to also dive deep on your favorite IP, jump on over and get all the details at patreon.com/debatethiscast. Get weird with us. Could be fun.
Could be fun.
That's what I was waiting for someone else to also say it would be fun.
To respond to your call. Yes,
Yeah.
I got you.
Well, as with everything, you can't descend to the severed floor and refine macro data on your own. So joining me at strategic intervals today, so we don't see each other in the parking lot, we have Andrew. Your innie enjoys painting small space elves, Henderson.
That's true.
Matt, your innie finds great joy in the delivery of a clever pun, Cole.
Also true.
And Kyle, your innie is calmed by the sound of a purring cat, Harper.
Sure is.
So
nailed it.
you know how we do this. We always take a moment to kind of go around the horn about Severance. So you, my friends, joining me here on the severed floor, what do you know about Severance?
Are you going to pass me the ball across the table?
Yeah.
I'll start as the one person on this podcast who hasn't watched this show yet. I know Adam Scott is in it. I know
Check.
Ben Stiller is creator, director, heavily involved.
Mhm.
And I know it's about belly buttons in some way. Innies and outies, right?
That's good.
Yeah,
That
man.
rules.
I love that.
Yeah, I'll go next. I have spent a really awesome and emotionally, mentally well week watching a lot of Severance, and it's been great. Honestly, I have wanted to watch Severance since it came out, and it's just been on that, like, well, when I get there, I get there. And we got this flavor text commissioned, and it was my excuse. I jumped in. I loved it. I immediately became obsessed with it. I've binged almost all of it this week. At time of recording, I've got 5 episodes of season 2 left. What I will say, or the other answer I'll give, is that before this week, what I knew about Severance were the things that Kyle said, and not the thing about belly buttons, but that it was about a world where they had found a way to technologically separate your work life from your day-to-day life. That was about as much info as I had going into it.
Praise Kier.
Praise
I also am a new convert. I started, much like Matt, I started halfway through season 2, blew through all of season 1 in a week or so, and then caught up to season 2 just in time to catch the season 2 finale when it premiered. And I've also much like Matt, just all the way in. I texted Matt like 3 times. I was like, dude, this is your shit. This is 1,000% your shit.
Yeah, you were right.
Which like, it's also my shit. And I also have consumed all of the companion podcasts, which we'll probably talk about too. So
yeah, Andrew has a good plug right there. I don't know if I mention it throughout the show, but if you are watching Severance now or you've already consumed it and you just want more because, hey, spoiler alert, there's going to be a season 3 and they said it's not going to take 3 years to get here. But if you want some extra content, the Severance podcast with Ben and Adam, which is Ben Stiller and Adam Scott, is really, really good.
It's great.
They do it episode by episode. They usually have someone who is pivotal either in the story or in that episode on the show. They usually give you like a little bit of information you probably didn't get from the show, which is fun. They validate like the occasional, theory that's out there or kind of shoot one down, which is fun as someone who is just deep in the sauce on this.
It definitely scratches the itch of the DVD commentary or the special features. Like you learn a lot of the lore. You learn how much of a crazy auteur director that Ben Stiller turned out to be, which is real fun.
I love that turn for him.
Yeah. Like not in an evil way, just in a like, dude is an artist for art's sake.
Yeah.
Well, and it's funny too because a lot of these people will be like, yeah, we were so excited to work with Ben Stiller. Like, he's a really famous like actor and director, and of course, like we all grew up with Ben Stiller. Like, Meet the Parents and Heavyweights. Like,
I mean, Zoolander is still like to this day one of my favorite movies. Like, it's incredible. And like when you hear Ben Stiller talk, he's like, Zoolander. But you guys want to talk about The Secret Life of Walter Mitty?
Yes, he is so good at the pivot of like, Meet the Fockers is a movie I did anyway.
Yeah. I do want to call out another podcast that I've more recently got into. So Ben and Adam's podcast is good for like DVD features. Another podcast I'll call it's called We Know Severance. This is actually part of the Rob Has a Podcast network, which is connected to the other Survivor Rob that isn't Boston Rob.
Yeah,
my God,
I was actually ready for you to say it was part of WeWork, but continue.
That was just for Matt. But again, so there's 3 hosts. 2 of them are neuroscientists, and they have a lot of like background into like they talk about the actual science behind the show and all this stuff. In addition to it to be just like a real deep dive and talking about the fan theories and stuff like that. So if you're interested in this stuff, those are 2 podcasts that you can dive into.
I love that. Well, we'll go ahead and we're going to jump into it. So as we tend to do with some of these properties, I want to give you a little bit of a primer and then we're just going to jump into the story. Since Matt has not finished season 2 and wants to, about 3/4 the way through this, he is going to bounce because boy, if you've only made it halfway through season 2 and you don't want the ending spoiled, we're going to super spoil it. So Matt'll ring a little bell when he leaves, just so we all know that he's on his way out.
Yeah, and this is probably a fair time to say like spoilers for you haven't severanced. This would be the time to sever yourself from this podcast until you finish the season, and then come really back, and it will be like you never left.
Oh Jesus! Okay, Matt. Leave some for the rest of us. Okay, so we'll get into this. So some background. Back in 2019, a writer named Dan Erickson pitched a pilot of a script for Severance to Red Hour Productions, which is Ben Stiller's like production company that he runs. So prior, he actually like came up with the pilot in 2016. It kind of made some rounds. It got a little bit of traction, and that's when in 2019 it got onto Ben Stiller's radar. And if the name Dan Erickson and Red Hour Production sound familiar, as I said, Red Hour Production is the production company run by Ben Stiller, who serves as the director and executive producer for Severance. And if you recognize the name Dan Erickson, you're a liar because he didn't do anything before this.
This is his one and only work. It's wild.
Yeah, man. It's like he has one other title under his name, and it was like something Flava Flav's lip sync production or something. Like it's it's like, go and look it up. I'm sure it's not like Flava Flav. It was some other rapper or whatever. But like he has some lip sync pre-production, like, and that's it. That's it. And now this dude has like won awards for Severance because it's just such a good series.
That's like this is an old example, but that's like Spike Jonze did music videos until he
You're
wrote
right.
Oscar-winning movies. Like,
Yeah.
You're absolutely right.
it happens, man.
Yeah,
And he poured
it
in a
makes
storm.
sense.
Yeah.
So he has won awards for Severance. A couple of them. He's part of Time's 100 Next list, and also some Writers Guild of America recognition. But starting in that 2019, 3 years later in 2022, Severance season 1 premiered on Apple Plus TV, and 3 years after that, season 2 came out. As we already said, season 3 has been greenlit, and Ben Stiller has said it's not going to take 3 years to get to season 3, which is pretty great because I don't want to wait 3 years for this. As someone who watched it in 2023, I only had to wait 2 years, and
Yeah.
3 sounds bad.
I will say when I got to the season 1 finale, I screamed out, "That's how they ended it!"
Yeah,
and then
Yeah.
and then 3 years went by. Yeah,
Well,
it's
and-
pretty wild.
And like, it's been a topic of discussion online that like,
Yeah,
we take too long to make shows now. We don't make seasons long enough.
yeah,
Conveniently forgetting that there was an entire pandemic and
And a writer's strike. Yeah.
between this first
Stuff.
and second season, and like,
Right.
yeah.
that slows
Mhm.
things down.
Well, part of the reason why this started in 2016 and didn't get greenlit until later is it got greenlit late, and then it came out and it got greenlit in 2019, and then it took 2 years to film to shoot because of the pandemic.
Right.
Yep.
And then season
Wow.
2 took 3 years because most shows, like what they were saying in the podcast, is like it's pretty normal for a show to take 2 years now with streaming.
Right.
The extra year was due to the writer's strike.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what Severance is, as we've kind of alluded to.
Do you have the door? Anything about the door factory in here?
Not really, other
Can
than
I-
a brief mention about
Can I
it
do
later.
Can I do a tight 20 on the door factory?
Yeah, sure, man.
So Dan Erickson, he in the first episode of the Severance podcast, he talks about the inspiration, and it all came from a moment that pretty much everyone, and I think this is the unifying factor of Severance, like every one of us in our professional lives has had this thought, which is Dan Erickson was working at a door factory. He was working at the front desk at a door factory in outside of Los Angeles, and he was like dirt broke. And he was sitting in his car, just doing that thing that we all do, saying like, "Oh my God, I can't do another day of this," and just like thinking to himself, like, "Man, wouldn't it be great if I could just like fast forward and like not have to deal with work and like go in and just immediately come out?" And that is the like thesis behind Severance.
Yeah, which becomes funny and kind of alluded to there that like there's a door factory bit in season 2, which kind of goes full circle.
I said when I was working retail, I said more than once a week that
Yes.
if I wish I could just black out until it
Yep.
was time and like go through the motions of my job until it was time to go home.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now I know from the premise of the show that how horrifying that might actually
That's-
be.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I like most. That's the pitch. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
that's the pitch of this show and the horrifying implications that leaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get to it because that hits pretty quick, and I think that's going to be a fun discussion. So, Severance, the show, it follows this like at least to start a small team of workers that have undergone this surgical procedure to sever their consciousness between their work and their personal lives. So, like, think you've got your 9 to 5 brain that's working, and then your 5 to 9 brain, and it switches off whenever you go into your place of work. And these people that we're following, at least majority of them, are called refiners, and they work for Lumen Industries' Macrodata Refinement Department, or MDR. And that is all located in the town of Kier, which is named after Lumen Industries founder Kier Egan. This is a company town. This is a company town with a big company. And whenever they go to work, they take this elevator to what is called the severed floor. And that's when they switch from their outside consciousness to their inside consciousness, which goes to what Kyle said to begin with, their outies and their innies. So when we
term
say
that never gets easier to say.
no, so when I say like so and so's outie, that's their outside person. So and so's innie, their inside person.
Are
Unless
these
context says otherwise, that's how that goes.
are these terms they use in the
Yes.
show. Not okay.
It is.
It's not like
And
fan
it's really
terms
jarring.
to talk about it. Got it.
Yeah, we get a kind of a self-insert at one point when they're like, "Oh yeah, you're outie," and the person's like, "What the fuck is that?" And they're like, "Oh, it's your outside person," and you're like, "Oh no."
It's purposefully infantilizing.
Yep.
Because again, the entire world that this show builds is everything is propaganda.
Yeah.
And it is propaganda to separate the identities of your outside person and your inside person. Your inside person, because if you think that they're the same person, you will feel bad.
Yep.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. And pretty quickly on, so like just a quick summation here. 2 other bullet points that I would add to that brief description of like what Severance is one, as we've already talked about, how unethical this is. And like at the surface level, you're like, oh yeah, fun show about what happens if your work brain, your home brain are different. And as soon as you peel past that first layer of the onion, you're like, oh, this is dark and horrible for all the reasons that you could possibly think about. The other thing that doesn't come to light right away, but once you start to see it, it gets more, you see this iceberg and it grows and grows and grows, is that Lumen, the company, is absolutely doing dark science shit. There's a line that you hear multiple times. The phrase, the work is mysterious and important, is a line that you hear multiple times about what Lumen Industries is doing.
I do, before you bounce, I do want to hear from you. What do you think Lumen does at this point of the show?
I am happy to give that to you at any point because I have strong feelings about it.
Let's do this. Let's get to the point you jump off.
Yeah.
And I think I want to hear it then.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If that works. Because I would love to hear hey, what do you think comes next and what do you think they're doing?
Absolutely.
So a quick rundown of the cast. There's a good number of characters, but there's going to be like half a dozen that we're going to see a lot, with a couple other surprises that kind of come in. So our main character, the one we follow the most, is Mark Scout. That's played by Adam Scott. You know him as Ben Wyatt from Parks and Recreation.
Derek from Step Brothers.
The Derek from Step Brothers was going to be the other one. Absolutely. Another main character you see is Helly. That's played by actress Britt Lower. I didn't know her from anything, but she's been in American Horror Stories. She was also on an episode of Always Sunny.
What season of American Horror Story was she in?
Great question, Matt.
Okay. Sounds like IMDb work for Matt.
Well, I only watched the first four,
Funny story is, until I watched the first episode, I thought this was the woman from Chuck in a weird wig, in a bad wig.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Oh, she was in much after I started watching.
Okay, good. So the good seasons, certainly.
Yeah,
sure. That show definitely got
everything after Hotel. Yeah, definitely. Great.
Yep.
The best
so
parts.
Another one of the characters we'll have is Dylan. He's played by the actor Zach Cherry. He most recently was one of the overseers in Fallout, the series. He's also plays the role of Clev in Marvel properties. He's the one that says, "Do a flip, Spider-Man."
Or my more favorite Clev moment is in Shang-Chi during the bus fight. He's the guy who live streams everything.
Yep.
And says, "What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all? What's up, y'all?" as people are escaping from the bus. It's
yes,
great.
that is
awesome.
That is him. So that's Dylan. And then our fourth refiner is Irving. That's John Turturro.
From being John Turturro.
Yeah. And like, just to name some things, the two things that I always think about is, so he plays whatever the one mobster is in the Batman, but he's from Mr. Jeeves.
Mr. Deeds.
Mr. Deeds. Jeeves is the search engine.
He's in,
you get it,
in The Big Lebowski, right? He's the Jesus.
He's in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah. So Mark, Helly, Dylan, and Irving are our four refiners. A lot of the story revolves around them, with Mark being central. A couple other people, Miss Cobell, so Patricia Arquette. I recognized Patricia Arquette. I couldn't tell you what she was from. I know she was in Medium. So any big Medium heads out there, you're gonna love.
Oh yeah, get out of some Medium heads.
Yeah, she is that actress though. You see her and you're like, oh yeah, Patricia Arquette. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, she's an Arquette.
I was gonna say she's related to like the Arquettes, correct?
Yeah, she's an Arquette.
Cool.
Yeah. Then we have Mr. Milchick. He's played by Tremel Tillman, and I don't think he'd really been in anything prior to this.
Yeah.
But boy, what an impact he has in this show. So he starts as the deputy floor manager. So he's kind of the second in command to Miss Cobell to start the show. Couple other ones to throw at you real quick. So Mark has a sister named Devin, played by Jen Tulloch. A lot of things I didn't recognize. Never seen her before at any of those things. And then Devin's sister, who is maybe my least favorite character in the show.
I'm sorry. Are you talking about the greatest character in this show, Rickon?
Rickon. I hate Rickon.
How do you hate Rickon?
I get what he's doing there, maybe, but
he's a shining beacon of hope in the darkness.
I have five
so-
episodes left, and right now I hate the fuck out of Rickon because he's a
Rickon's-
sellout.
Oh, you guys are the worst.
Rickon, yeah. Anyway, Rickon is played by Michael Chernus. He played the Tinkerer in Spider-Man Homecoming. So
No shit.
that's where, man, that's him.
Huh. What do you know?
Michael Keaton. So those are kind of the main characters that I'll give you. There's a couple more that'll sneak in, and there's a pretty fun reveal in like episode 2 that I just don't want to say yet. For any of you that have not seen Severance that are listening to this, I guess. Anyway, this will be a fun thing for Kyle in a couple episodes. So
I can't wait for this to all just make more sense after I watch it.
hell yeah,
Yeah,
man. All right, so I want to jump through. We're going to go do like season by season storyline kind of overview for season 1 and 2. It starts out pretty heavy at first because you got to like set the stage, but then it gets cooking. So we'll go ahead and jump in. Season 1 is titled Good News About Hell, which is a rad name for a first episode. And so the whole series opens with a woman laying on a conference room table as this like voice speaks through a speaker to her. This is Helly R. This is the newest refiner at Lumen Industries, and it is her first day of work as she's being interviewed by Mark S. with like basic questions of who are you and where were you born? Unfortunately, all questions she can't answer. She is unable to answer any of those as this like speaker is trying to address her with these questions. Helly was recently severed, and we are seeing her innie's first day of work, which means also her first day of existence. The kind of the cool thing is we come back to this like 17 episodes from now, and there's some really fun stuff that gets addressed. Like one of the questions she's asked is like, what is Jaime Egan's favorite breakfast food? And like we know that answer a season and a half later, which is so stupid. But it's really, really fun.
This is the point of Severance. Like they are starting with the headline, the question, who are you? Like that is the whole operating factor behind this show.
Now I have to ask, at any point in the show, do they do a well, I wasn't born yesterday. Well, actually, kind of joke. Anything like that?
They not directly, but they do a couple. Like at one point in season 2, it's not anything that like is plot, but like at one point they start talking about things that exist in the outside world, and they're like, "Well, Delaware's a place, right?" Like it's just it's very like infantile of
Gotcha.
like, what do you know about the world? There's continents, like so it's not really I was born yesterday, but like they just don't know anything.
Sure.
So we have a cutaway from this like opening scene, and this is where we get to talk about our main character, Mark Scout. So Adam Scott's character, we find out that Mark took this job with Lumen as a severed employee 2 years ago after the death of his wife, Gemma, after she died in a car accident. So he had been this like university professor. His life was pretty good. His wife died in this car accident, and his whole life fell apart. And I think he got fired from his job for drinking. Like it was just his life spiraled, and he took the job at Lumen Industries as a way to block the trauma that he lives with all day, that he could at least cut it out of his life from 9 to 5. And so that's like his whole bit of why he got into being a severed employee.
That is grim.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. I'm sure it'll get better though.
It's all uphill from here.
The dystopian future, I'm going to put hard quotes on the word future.
Yeah.
The dystopian environment that this show creates is, as somebody who is hard dick for dystopian media all the time, fucking legendary. Like a level of dystopian that I don't know that I've really seen put on paper before.
It is both incredibly fantastical and so believable.
Yes.
Yeah, they do a good job.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's significant that the very first scene that we're introduced to Adam Scott's character is him crying pretty hard just in his car by
Just
himself.
crying in his car before he goes into work.
Again, something that we've all done.
Yeah, it's the self-inserts right there.
Yeah, it's brutal.
Well,
and it just triggers a lot of feelings.
Well, and in that scene too, so like, let's just paint the full picture. So he's crying in his car before he goes into work at Lumen that day. He goes in, swipes his card, gets on the elevator dings. It shows him transferring into his innie version, to which like he's kind of got a little smile on his face because he likes working. He's walking down the hallway and he finds the tissue that he was blotting his tears on in his pocket and kind of shrugs and throws it into the garbage. Like, it's very like they're painting a full picture of, I mean, Mark did this for a reason and it worked more or less.
Yeah.
So we do get the other two refiners in this image too. So we have your Helly, we have your Mark, we get Dylan G. So again, do a flip Spider-Man guy. He is a refiner who he thinks his Audi is the coolest guy on earth. He thinks that he does water sports and lives on a boat and is a bodybuilder and does muscle shows. That's a thing that he says. I don't think his Audi does any of that, but he's also a hardworking employee that loves to get all the rewards. Like, if you complete the data set, you get a finger trap or a waffle party or all these other things. And he's all about being refiner of the quarter.
Waffle Party sounds like some dark early 2000s dark corner of the internet stuff.
Yeah,
Hey,
Kyle, when we get there, same with Matt, I want you to tell us what you think a waffle party is. I want to see how wrong you are.
No, well,
You'll
I've seen the
never
waffle
be able
party.
to guess.
Matt's seen the waffle
No,
party.
I know. That's what
I've
I'm saying.
waffled a
Kyle.
party or two in my day.
No, that's what I'm saying is I want Kyle to try to guess what a waffle party is to see how off he is, because it's impossible to guess.
Yeah, you'll be wrong, but also what you said isn't wrong.
Yeah.
And then we also get Irving B, the fourth refiner. It's kind of insinuated he's been there the longest. He is a long-serving refiner who lives by the book of all things Lumen. Lumen is a place of order, rules, policies, and Irving knows them all. Again, that is John Turturro. He is the through line rules follower. He always shows up every morning and says, "What's for dinner, kids?" To the three coworkers there. So the other thing we pick up is that Mark is also newly promoted as the head of Macrodata Refinement, as the old head, Petey, suddenly quit Lumen Industries. He just kind of receives that information from the manager of the severed floor, Miss Cobell, that's Patricia Arquette, and the deputy floor manager, Tremel Tillman, known as Mr. Milichik. So Ms. Cobell, Mr. Milichik, they're kind of the Lumen authorities on the floor. That Mark is in charge of onboarding Heliar for her first day of work, and that's what we see when the show first starts this episode. So we snap back to that, and we see her deal with that realization that her just entire known life is going to be living as an employee of Lumen Industries, and we kind of see how that all plays out because Mark's doing this onboarding through a speaker, and it's not going well. So he walks into the room. They talk for a little bit, and then she throws the speaker at Mark's head and runs out of the room. It's like a really, really funny moment because he's reading through the book, and she throws the speaker, and he goes, "Ah, fuck!" And she runs out of the room.
There's also, I think, a great moment in that where he's following a flow chart of how to go through this orientation.
It's a script, yeah.
And he is reminded by a senior employee, I think it's Irving, who says, "Remember, she has to ask to leave 3 times before you're allowed to let her." Which, my partner used to work in institutional advancement at our alma mater, and that was the big thing at the call center. Was
sure.
You can't get off the phone unless they ask
they have
3
to.
times.
Yep.
It's bleak.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's very much like that. And it's like they're going through the teleprompter script. Like it's funny.
Well, and it gets to that point too, and he's like, "Ask again." And she's like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Ask to leave again." And she's like, "I would like to leave." And he flips through the page. He's like, "All right, since you have asked to leave," and they walk out that way. So there's a good point then. So he walks her to the stairwell and is like, "You can leave right through there. There you go. That stairwell leads outside." And she's like, "Okay." And he's like, "I just can't watch you leave. I'm not allowed to do that." And so we see multiple times her leave the stairwell and come right back in, over and over and over again. And we get the reveal why that is in the next episode, so I won't quite spoil that one. But the other funny thing is that we see when So Mark gets hit in the head with the speaker. And so at the end of the day, when he leaves, he has like a gift card in his pocket or in his car or something that basically says, oh, at work, you like dropped a box and hurt yourself. Please accept this gift card to the local Chili's as our apology. Like, and again, it just, as Andrew said, it really hits that heavy, like, this is going to be propaganda. Like they're going to absolutely hide everything. No one's going to be honest here.
Oh boy.
You gonna say something, Kyle?
Nope. Just making connections to my real life. And
The Matt, I want to dive in on the point Matt made, because the show does a really good job of setting the scene of this company town as a complete holistic nightmare.
Yes, absolutely.
This company town is a perfectly normal, average-looking, middle-class upstate New York suburb, basically. But where Mark Scout lives, as we see in episode 1, he lives in these like very much corporate townhouses that all look the same. The restaurant that he gets, I think this is one of my favorite parts of the first episode. The restaurant that he gets this gift card to is like, I mean, it is basically an upscale chain diner.
Yeah.
He gets access to the VIP section.
Yeah.
And it's literally just a booth in the corner that has a chain with VIP in front of it.
Yeah, man.
And it's no different. And it just like I think that as somebody who loves Charlie Kaufman as an artist, as a filmmaker, that spoke to me in so many ways.
Yeah, and I'll add one other thing. Kyle, have you seen Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind?
I have.
Yeah, I think you can draw a pretty thin line between Eternal Spotlight and what Severance does. But if instead of Jim Carrey, it was like an 1840s prospector in West Virginia and they lived in a company town where they got script for the company store. And also, it's just like modern day corporate America. And it is really like, there is so much dissonance between the logic and the empathy of the people in this town that it really makes the town feel like another branch of The Office.
Sure.
I mean, it's the banality of evil, right? Like this is a more realistic and worldly depiction of true evil is this. It is slow. It is steady. It is look outside. It's that, like, it's right. Like it's not The Handmaid's Tale. Like it's this. It is like subtle and just ever present.
So we also get to meet Mark's. You're good. We get to meet Mark's sister Devin, and her husband Rickon. And Rickon and his circle of friends are all the most insufferable humans you've ever met. They make some remark about how, like, the thing that set me off in their conversation, which Mark calls them on, is they're talking about how, I think, like World War I, they're like, oh, well, they called it the Great War. And I don't know why they didn't just call it World War I. And Mark is like, because World War II hadn't happened. What do you mean? Why didn't they call it World War I? Like, get the hell out of here.
Isn't the point of this dinner party that they're not eating? Isn't that like,
it's because at one point Rickon is like, this is where I would say, like, eat up, and they'll go ho, 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 ho. And then like Devin makes Mark a sandwich when they all leave. Like, the whole thing is so shitty. But the big takeaway here is they're talking about how ethical it is to be a severed employee, because Rickon says, oh, Mark works for Lumen. They're like, oh, what do you do? And he's like, I do this and I do that. And Rickon's like, well, he's a severed person. And there's like a record scratch. And Devin's like, that's not really a thing you get to share with people. Like, Mark gets to share if he's a severed employee, kind of thing. But the summary, like the ending of the episode, kind of wraps with a couple things. We find out Petey, the old manager who suddenly disappeared, is alive. And he's found a way to reverse the severance procedure to like reintegrate your severed halves. We also find out that not only does Mark work for Lumen, Andrew said it's like this housing, it's Lumen-owned subsidized housing. So this is industry-owned company housing. And completely unaware to Audi Mark is that his floor manager, Miss Cobell, lives next door to him, pretending to be some old woman named Mrs. Selvig, which is a fantastic reveal at the end of the episode because you're like, she sucks on the main floor. She's the kindly old neighbor that wants to bring him tea and cookies. Something's fucking going on.
Do the Audis know that that this is a company housing? Like, do they know they work for the I forget
for
the name.
Lumen.
For Lumen, they just
So not all of them live in company housing.
Okay.
Mark just does. I think it's kind of again one of those like Mark's life has fallen apart. And
sure.
Moved out of whatever house he had at this company housing, works for Lumen. His whole identity in life is like owned by Lumen.
Gotcha.
It's also fun because the episode being called Good News About Hell is because Helly, who's there, she refers to it as hell. Like, we're in hell. This is it. We live at work forever. We're in hell.
I think if I had to describe hell, at least a level of it, company housing would come into play there. So
right.
There's a really good line. When she's trying to like piece it all together, she looks at Mark and she's like, "So we're trapped here. We don't ever leave." And he goes, "You leave at 5." No, you leave at 5.
Yeah, it's really good. Mm-hmm. So we'll jump to episode 2. So it's called Half Loop, which Half Loop is an address in this episode. That's the end of that. We actually see the process of Helly being severed, like her Audi. So we get to see the glimpse of the surgical procedure, which is actually done by Mr. Milchek. Like, he's part of that, which is wild. But we see that like they put a chip in your brain, and that
with
brain
a drill, with just a regular ass drill,
drill it into your head.
A power drill.
Yeah, they drill it into your head. They put a chip in your brain that triggers whenever they go down the elevator to the severed floor. And what we do see is like the opposite half of what happened to her in the first episode. So in the first episode, we kept seeing her try and leave and come back in from the stairwell over and over again. We now see the other side where her Audi is seeing like her Audi keeps stepping out into the stairwell. And Mr. Milchek's there and is like, "Oh, no, you just got to go back inside." And her Audi is like, "Oh, I really don't want to be in there, do I?" And Mr. Milchek's like, "Well, no, you're warming up to it. It just takes a little bit." And so like it's again like slices of dystopia of like honestly, and I'll say it now and probably say it again, the best storytelling they do in this show is when they do that bit. When they show you just the chunks of what the outside person knows or just the chunks of the inside person. Yeah. And it creates such cool like narrative storytelling with laps of information that you don't get until typically later. So Helly's new coworkers explain what it is they do at Lumen. Because like the work is mysterious and important. And they are told, or Helly's told, that they just sort bundles of numbers that are encrypted data into categories. And specifically, it's bundles of numbers that are either scary or incite some other emotion. And like, I can't describe that any better than that. Like they roll over patterns of numbers, and when you feel something, you circle up those numbers and you throw them into a box and number go up.
Yeah. It almost looks like they're playing Minesweeper.
Yeah, it's like Minesweeper in the Matrix Code is kind of what it looks like. Yeah. She also makes a comment kind of to what Andrew's point was about how it feels like she just left work even though the weekend took place. That like she was like, "I'm back again." And they're like, "Oh yeah." And at one point there's like they say something like, we like, "How do you know if we even get to sleep?" And Mark makes the response of like, "Oh, well, since we don't sleep, I like to focus on how I feel knowing that I probably did sleep. Like the feeling of how rested I am." Like just super fucking dark.
It's brutal.
Oh, then she said something about like, well, what if I don't come back or whatever? And that's when they realize that like Helly gets faced with their mortality. That Dylan says, "Well, if you never came back to work, you would just cease to exist. You just stop being if you don't come back to work." They're also rewarded with a melon party. It's a party where they get melon because Helly's new to the team. Fun. They have fun at Lumen. That's what's important there. So there's a point where Helly tries to sneak a note to herself because like Helly doesn't want to be here. She's like, "I'm going to sneak a note to my Audi self which triggers an alarm, which we learn that Lumen has security measures on their elevators that make sure that no notes, anything with text, can ever escape from the severed floor. She's caught, but Mark takes the blame. When the head of security catches her, Mark kind of jumps in front of it and is like, hey, this is on me. I did this. Like, I should have stopped her. And so Mark is taken to a place called the break room, which the break room is where innies get punished.
You don't take a break there.
You don't. It's not for taking breaks.
The break room in caps, capitalized the break
rough.
room in the notes with no other context is terrifying to me.
Yeah.
The non-viewer here.
Yeah, the two bits there. The break room is bad, and we don't fully know what the break room is yet, but the break room's bad. And the head of Lumen Security is a dude named Mr. Grainer, who also seems bad. You don't have a lot of love for Mr. Grainer.
He's a big man.
Yeah, he's a big man. And then he's not as big as future.
He's not a brick shit
security
house.
man.
Yeah.
Don't tell me about him yet. I haven't seen him yet.
Oh,
You have.
Yeah, you have.
Oh, okay.
You have. You've seen Drummond.
Yeah.
Drummond.
That man is
Yeah.
a brick shit house.
He's a brick
That
shit
man's
house.
a shit brick house.
Yeah. So back in the outside world, we do see that there are people that are protesting like innies' rights against Lumen. That innies have no agency, they have no rights, and Adam Scott's character Mark is kind of a shithead about it. He's like, oh, like it's not my choice to like send a different version of me down there, and they're like, well, your version of you doesn't have any decision making, and he makes some remark about, like, oh, well, you sent yourself out here to protest. Does the you of now have agency from back when you made that decision? Or is it just a thing you have to deal with? And you're like, all right, Mark, shut up, dude. We understand your life is falling apart.
He's also like, he's drank the Kool-Aid. Like he has to be in. Like
He's all in, yeah.
he has to be in because otherwise it would be, he made the wrong choice.
Absolutely.
And we've heard a little bit that like PD may have been, unsevered, but they've made it really clear up until this point that is not a possibility. This is like a permanent one-way procedure.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. We get the PD storyline pops back up here soon, but they to everyone, it is irreversible. It's never able to be reversed. What's done is done. We also have a moment in this episode where Irving, who again, rules follower, like longtime good employee, he starts like nodding off to sleep at his desk, and he hallucinates that black goop is washing over his desk in his workspace. It's pretty wild. And
the black goop nightmare that we've all had.
The classic black goop nightmare.
Comes for us all.
Like it's test day and you're in your underwear. Just
a gentleman's goop mirror.
Just a gentleman's goop mirror.
He like wakes up screaming. And so Mr. Milchek, who's like the floor manager, deputy floor manager, is like, you can't do that. And we're going to have to think about if we can trust you, since you're obviously not being responsible at work. While we think about that, you're going to go have a wellness session. And wellness session is actually a good thing. Not like break room. Wellness session is a good thing. So we get to meet the counselor for Lumen, a woman named Miss Casey. And this is the scene where Irving is sitting across from this woman as she reads a list of sentences about his innie, or his outie, facts about his outie. Things like, your outie is generous. Your outie is fond of music and owns many records. Your outie likes the sound of radar. Things that are like true about his outie that his innie couldn't know. And that's when he at one point kind of chuckles. She says something about like, your outie is a passionate and kind or generous lovemaker. Oh. And he kind of laughs a little bit, and she stops and she goes, please try to enjoy each fact equally and not show preference for any over the others. That's minus 10 points. And he's like, 10 points? And she's like, 90 points remaining. Yes. It's, again, Lumen has rules and they are weird and it is all control.
The character of Miss Casey is so interesting too, because up to this point, like, it's also not clear who is severed and who isn't.
Yeah.
When we see Mr. Milchek talk to Audi Helly, that's the first inclination, like, oh shit, not everyone here is on the same wavelength.
Yes.
Okay.
It is definitely assumed now at this point that Mr. Milchek and Miss Cobell are not severed.
Yeah. Miss Casey, though, is a little bit different story because she like sounds like an alien. Like she has a very like, you're in this like yoga studio ass room, and she's like, your Audi is ba ba ba, and she has this like na 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 kind of cadence, like
you're trying to calm
alien.
down a spooked horse.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah. So the other thing that happens after Irving leaves his wellness session is he runs into a man working for optics and design, O&D, a man named Bert, who's played by Christopher Walken. There is a Christopher Walken jump scare in this series. And I wanted to save that for this because, like, you're watching this and you're like, oh shit, it's Christopher Walken. And you think that Christopher Walken is going to be like this cameo. No, man. He's around in this series.
Central character, central
a-
fixture.
Good.
Yeah, which, like, if you listen to, so at the end of each episode, they do like a behind the scenes and then obviously the podcast. But like, John Turturro knows and has worked with Christopher Walken. So when it came to this character, I don't know who called for who, but they were like, can we get Christopher Walken? And like, they did. And it's great. So outside of the office, Petey and Mark, they've run into each other now, and Petey is explaining to Mark that he is experiencing reintegration sickness from reversing his severance. So that's what's happening. Petey has done something to reintegrate his halves, his outie and his innie, and he's now very sick because of it. Petey also provides some solid proof that he knows Mark's innie, and he does that by playing a voice recording of Mark when he's in a break room. And it's Mark over and over again, like, repeating the tenets of Kier back to Lumen, saying like, I have disparaged the name of Lumen and I'll never do it again, like over and over and over and over and over. And Mark's like, hey, what the fuck? What the fuck is that? Because this is Audi Mark having no idea about any of that. So Petey's hiding at Mark's place. Episode ends with Petey passing out in the shower because he has reintegration sickness. Dude's not doing well. So we get to episode 3, In Perpetuity. So Petey tells Mark that he's being given help to reintegrate himself, to reverse the severance procedure. That's a big deal. Who's helping him? We don't know that quite yet, but he's getting help into it. He didn't just drill into his brain and pull out a chip. Like, someone is helping him do this. We also find out that Mark's brother, Rickon, is writing a book, or has written a book called The You Are. And... God, Rickon, I hate Rickon. And he drops
a big the man inside me vibes from Arrested Development.
100%. Yeah, so him and Devin, Mark's sister Devin and her husband Rickon, they drop off a copy of the UU, which, by the way, Devin loves Rickon, but she is not sold on all the shit. Like,
sure.
Rickon does all this banana stuff, and Devin's always like one eye roll away.
Like, if your brother joined a cult and you were like trying to be supportive of it, which
you're trying to be supportive of it and be like, I love this person, and if I don't keep my hand holding their hand, I'm going to lose them entirely.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so they drop off an early copy of the UUR on Mark's door. Well, Ms. Cobell, the secret neighbor next door, goes and grabs it, thinking that like maybe they're trying to sneak hidden messages to Mark about like what Lumen is doing. So she also then gets into Mark's house and starts snooping through his house, which Petey's hiding in the house. So Petey flees. Petey flees the house, and he ends up collapsing outside at like a convenience store.
Petey Fleeties.
Petey Fleeties. So, hey, remember how sad Helly is in her like 3rd day of work? She's still unhappy. So she is unhappy about being on the severed floor, and she makes a bunch of escape attempts. Irving suggests that, hey, why don't we have Helly go visit the Perpetuity Wing to learn all about Lumen's founder, Kier Egan. Like, Perpetuity should just be like the propaganda wing, but Helly would love to learn about Kier Egan and Lumen and everything about it. And so, listeners, if you're wondering if there's dogma attached to the weird founding of Lumen, oh, there is.
Yeah, buddy.
I outwardly cheered because I was like, oh, it's a cult.
Yeah. It's not a cult. We'll definitely say that. So Helly is ultimately sent to... just real quick, when they go to the Perpetuity Wing, it's like all the Lumens throughout the last,
It's
Like,
the Hall of Presidents.
It's the Hall of Presidents, but for lumens, it's the complete recreation of Keir Egan's house that he grew up in.
The history wall.
Yeah.
But like it's history written exclusively by the people that control the history and control who gets to see the history.
Which is history.
I should be clear. I should be more clear. I'm thinking of one of our clients has a that I go to work for. I go to their headquarters often, and they have a big history wall on the first floor. And it's
it's based on a true story.
Yeah, very based on a true story. Exactly.
Yeah. So after all of this, Helly does end up getting sent to the break room for punishment for trying to escape so many times, where she is forced to repeat a phrase over 1,000 times, basically about like how sorry she is and how wrong she's been and what she did wrong and yada, yada, yada. All while Mr. Milchek sits across from her and goes, again. Like it's fucking bleak.
One of my favorite parts about this moment is that it really shows the control that Lumen has, but also the limits. Because earlier we see Mark leave Lumen with like a Band-Aid on his head, and there's a little company apology card on his car that's like, sorry, you were putting a water tank on and bonked your head, so I gave you a Band-Aid. And so it shows you like they can psychologically torture these innies beyond belief as long as there's no physical representation of that damage on the other side.
Yeah.
The episode ends though with so Mark is clearing out photos, and he ends up like photos of the old team before Helly joined, and he ends up finding a like map that Petey had been drawing, navigating all the hallways of Lumen. Like, so Petey was being like reintegrated while he was still working there, and had started mapping out the hallways of Lumen to like plot what's going on there. We also find out
this is in Lumen. He finds this.
It's in the severed floor. So Mark finds it behind like a photo frame. We also see that Petey had collapsed. Was taken away by an EMS because like he's have this reintegration sickness, and so Mark hurries home to start like hiding Petey's shit because he's like, holy shit, this man who I just met, who's telling me that my company I work for is doing sketchy shit, just collapsed. I need to hide all of his stuff. And that's when he sees that Petey's old cell phone is ringing. Someone's trying to get a hold of Petey. And like, that's the end of that episode. So that stupid book title, the UUR, that's the name of episode 4. God, I'm so mad. So we see Irving and Bert. So again, this is John Turturro and Christopher Walken's character. They have this like romance starting to bud. This flirtatious kind of like work thing going.
It's beautiful.
Let's just take a moment to create some space for the ethical implications that can happen when like innies have a love story.
Yeah.
Because this is not the first. Well, this is the first, but it is not going to be the last time we talk about what happens when innies would have a relationship. And you know what? It's fine. I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure there's not any issues here.
None of these people are married outside of the workplace.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Probably not.
Probably not related at all or anything like that.
Oh, that would be a reveal.
There's an Easter egg before we get this first love story that like Mark in the outside world when he's at home just has the news on in the background, and you can hear an anchor say, you know, like an employee is suing a severed employee is suing her employer after she got pregnant on the severed floor of her workspace.
Yeah. Because that is a thing that we do find out right around this time is like they're not the only 4 severed people. So Andrew had said we're not sure who's not severed, but we do find out that there are whole teams of severed people.
There are
like,
more
working
severed floors around.
This is I think the severed floor, but there's other severed
there are departments.
teams.
I gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
And that
there's
gets
a reason
blown,
why they're all separated.
Yeah, for sure.
Got it.
So
separated.
We also find that book that Rickon left behind for Mark, that's made its way into Lumen's hands. Like there's a scene of Milchek reading it, and as he's reading it, he's just like, huh, all right. like, and so this book is now like in rotation at Lumen. Like Mark gets his hands on it. And so Mark's innie starts reading this, the you are, not knowing that it's his brother-in-law's.
Milchek brought it in.
Milchek brought it in.
Oh, okay.
This is our like audience. There is a way for them to get things through the security, but only management has access to that.
Yep.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So it's not even. And I think it's important to note the UUR is just the most like mindless dribble, like
nothing.
Baby's first motivational speaker schlock.
Yeah.
But again, it further like enhances the idea that like these innies are basically children. They are adult
babies.
children.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point because it is just slop. Like this season ends with a live book reading, and every snippet you get, you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna fight someone. So there's also a moment here where Mark has that map that he found from Petey, and like Helly sees him with it, and like there's this moment where like Helly's like, holy shit, is that a map? And Mark's like, no, it's not, and we shouldn't be messing around with this, and shreds it right in front of her. So like Mark is deep in on the Kool-Aid. He is in for Lumen. This is also the episode where there's an awesome scene where like Helly's at her limit. So she grabs one of those industrial paper cutters that you all used in elementary school or high school to like chop stacks of papers and storms into Miss Cobell's office with her fingers underneath the blade and is like, you're going to let me out or you're going to explain to my Audi why she's missing all of her fingers. And like
Helly rules, man. She kicks ass.
It's such a bananas moment. And so what they settle on is they say, okay, like you can record a message because she had already written up a note saying like, I want to leave. Tell my Audi I want to leave. And her Audi's like, you're not leaving. And so they're like, okay, fine. Why don't you record a message to your Audi and we'll send you out with that. And it's fine. And we'll figure it out from there. Spoiler alert, her view is she gets on the elevator and she's like, all right, see you all in hell, but you're already here. Leaves. The very next second is the scene of the elevator opening right back up again with her stepping out holding a different CD. And it is her Audi recording a video that basically says like, I'm a person and you're not. And if you try and pull anything, I'll make things way worse for you. Like you live there for me. Like, that's your first taste of Helly's Audi, and you're like, I don't care for her.
Don't think she's a good person.
Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah. So Mark's Audi finds out that Petey died. Petey has died. The reintegration process has killed him, and he decides to go to his funeral because one, he's like bumped into Petey a couple times, and it's like, holy shit, Petey said that he was like my friend that I worked with. But he shows up at the funeral and Miss Cobell is there, which, reminder, is like pretending to be his neighbor, the kind like Mrs. Selvig. And she's like, Mark, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I saw that this man worked at Lumen and thought we might be friends. And Miss Cobell is like, huh, that's really interesting. And during the funeral ceremony, she uses a drill to pull the chip out of the back of Petey's head. All while
from the casket,
while no one's watching, while a really touching video of Petey and his daughter playing Enter Sandman together is playing. So there's like Enter Sandman's playing over the background while she's drilling into this dead dude's head.
Yeah,
because she wants to pull that chip out to see like what Petey did to start to reintegrate.
Sure,
because she wants to know.
Kyle, something else that'll really hit you when you get to watch this. There are some monster needle drops in this show.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We also see briefly Mark gets a wellness session with counselor Mrs. Casey or Miss Casey. So that's a fun little, like, he gets another one of those, your Audi likes 2 scoops of ice cream, but if they're the same flavor only. Your Audi can assemble a tent in under 5 minutes. Like these like kind facts, which both of those 2 things are relevant later, which is really funny. The ending of this episode, though, is Helly smuggles out an extension cord in the episode and hangs herself in the elevator with the extension cord.
Oh,
yeah.
So So
This is when the show steps on the gas.
Yeah.
because Mark, I mean, pulls her down, but like that's what the episode ends with. And what's really interesting is we go into the next episode, Helly survives, and we find that out. But like before she comes back down the elevator, they're like, she's going to wake up with the last thought being she was choking, like strangling from an extension cord. And like, that's horrifying, but it's really funny because Milchek is giving Mark a pep talk and he's like, okay, Mark, I want you to meet her at the elevator. I need you to practice having kind eyes. And so there's a scene where like the door opens and she's freaking out, like laying on the floor. And Mark's just really, really close to her with really, really wide eyes.
I don't know if there's an actor that could be Mark Scout better than Adam Scott.
Adam Scott has done such a good job with this.
Yeah.
So Helly survives, returns to work. A couple days later, Mark's Innie continues reading Rickon's book. A fun thing that happens is Devin and Rickon. So Devin's pregnant, Mark's sister's pregnant, and they have their baby. And we find out that, boy, wouldn't you know it, there are things in Kier, the town they live in, that are birthing cabins sponsored by Lumen. Lumen has specific cabins you can go to just have your baby. They are these posh luxury cabins controlled by Lumen where you can just go and give birth.
Are Devin and Rickon Lumen employees?
Nope.
No.
They're not.
They just live in the town of Kier. So I mean it's like
okay.
It's like being in Columbus and trying to avoid Nationwide. You can't.
Sure. I got it.
Yeah, you're going to step on a Schottenstein property without even knowing.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So the whole town's owned by Lumen, and that's very cool and fine. So after all of this and PD dying, Mark and Helly, like, they decide they're going to try and recreate that map. Like, they think that Lumen's up to something. Something's weird here. They kind of start their plotting. This is where, like,
you need to comfort this potential suicide victim might have tipped him off.
This is definitely where insurrection begins to foamate. Like, this is it. It's the seeds have been planted. This is where we also find out that everyone else who works on the severed floor of Lumen that don't work for Macrodata Refinement think that the Macrodata Refinement people are monsters. And I don't mean like evil, but I mean actual monsters. Like Bert works for Optics
and Design.
Yeah, Optics and Design, O&D. And so they meet some of the O&D people, and one of them is like, I heard you all have pouches like kangaroos. And they're like, no. We don't.
MDR thinks that O&D are a bunch of barbarians.
Yeah, like eat people. Because there was like a painting somewhere,
and they're all baby brains.
Okay. They're all baby brains.
But what have we learned? What happens when? Why would somebody in charge want to separate the masses, Kyle?
Yep. Yeah,
yes.
you don't want any sort of alliances between the groups. You don't want them communicating, talking. So there is part of this is a field trip. So a couple of them go to O&D, and Dylan steals a card, like a picture of what looks like two men fighting, like a drawn picture of two men fighting. He stuffs it in his back pocket. Mr. Milchek finds them, sends them all back to their offices, puts them in timeout. No one goes to the break room, but it's like, hey, you shouldn't be out wandering. Get back. But also, I'm not going to punish you because one of your people tried to hang themselves with an extension cord 3 work days ago, so we're not going to do that. So we get to episode 6. We see that Mr. Grainer, the head of security, tells Ms. Cobell that an ex-employee named Ragabi is responsible for PD's reintegration. So here we have a new character, an ex-Lumen employee scientist. So Ragabi is going to be important here going forward. Irving and Bert realize and admit that they have feelings, but Irving says he can't commit to a relationship. But like I said, he meets the rest of Irving's team. And Mark kind of says, like, hey, guys, don't you think it's weird? Like, Lumen's got something going on. Like, something's weird is going on here. We should all, like, kind of figure that out again. Like,
we should all, unite in a group, organize our labor, maybe. Yeah.
It's definitely got big, like, we can't say that what's happening here is evil, but something feels weird, and we should probably think about that.
it's probably also important to note that Helly R is a huge influence on Mark S.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
At this point, Helly has pretty much been consistent since day one. And where you think like at beginning, like Helly's going to warm up to Lumen, it's quite the reverse. Is that Mark warms up to Helly and through that is like, hey, what the fuck?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So we cut to a scene, though. It is outie Dylan. This is outside Dylan. Suddenly, his innie is woken up in Dylan's closet with Mr. Milchek sitting across from him. So, like, Mr. Milchek has gone to outie Dylan's house, had him go into a closet, and, like, somehow awoken his innie and says to him, like, what did you do with that card you took from Optics and Design? And innie Dylan is like, what? Holy shit, is this my house? Is this where I live? And Mr. Milchek's like, what did you do with that card? Where did you put it? And Dylan's like, I put it behind the toilet, the third stall. I didn't know what it is. Holy shit, we're in my house. What? And like at that point, Dylan's son busts into the closet going like, Daddy, Daddy. And Dylan goes, I have a son?
he's like, what the fuck?
Yeah, and Mr. Milchek looks at the kid and is like, I told you to stay outside and count to 1,000. And like suddenly he gets on a phone and he says, end it. And we see a switch flip and it switches back to outie Dylan, who Mr. Milchek's like, all right, thank you, Dylan. Yeah, we got everything taken care of. And like just kind of leaves. So here we've gotten a piece of like, oh, innies can exist in the outside world, or like the process doesn't just happen when they go down the elevator. There's a thing.
Something else triggers it. Yeah.
Yeah. We also see in this episode, Miss Cobell, who, reminder, is also Mark's neighbor, pretending to be this weird old woman, becomes his sister's lactation consultant as she is nursing, because that's not extremely weird and absolutely wrong.
That's normal. That's fine.
Cobell's whole position in this show is probably the most puzzling. She just is constantly going on side quests.
Yeah, and it gets some resolution, not all resolution, but she
definitely not all.
The thing to take away, 6-ish episodes in here is that like Ms. Cobell is really involved in Mark's life outside of Lumen. Really involved. And why is TBD? But it's just happening a lot.
I do think we have also at this point seen that Mrs. Cobell in her outie house has a Lumen shrine.
Yes.
Yeah. She's in the
firmly into it. That is a very good point.
Good.
One point of distinction. Sorry. So there's the company Lumen, and then there is the cult of Kier.
Yes,
and those things are not the same, but definitely intersect at points.
Yeah,
intertwined.
Yeah. I'm sure there's people on non-severed floors punching expense reports in that aren't kneeling at the shrine of Kier Egan.
Right.
But if you're working at any executive level or underground, you are probably
you're hearing a lot about how great Kier Egan is. Yeah.
The way that episode ends, though, is that Mark ends up answering Petey's phone that keeps ringing and finds out that is the ex-Lumen employee, Ragabi, who was helping reintegrate Petey and like wants to meet with Mark because she knows that like Mark is in that circle. Episode 7, titled Defiant Jazz, which is fun because this is where we get a dance scene that we see Mark and Ragabi meet at this like university like science building. And Ragabi's like explaining to him about, reintegration and what it is and how she can help. And while they're there, the head of Lumen Security, Mr. Grainer, like finds them and like corners Mark and is like, hey, Mark, what you doing here? And of course, like outie Mark doesn't know who this man is. Like, this is the head of security who's like, we work together at Lumen. What are you doing here? And he's like, and like before he can answer, Ragabi beats Mr. Grainer over the back of the head with a bat.
Yeah.
Just absolutely clubs him to death right there while outie Mark is screaming.
Yeah.
Audi Mark screaming when violence involved happens more than one time in this show.
Screaming and shitting and pissing and farting.
Yeah. Yeah. And so they kill the security guard. They take his key card, and Ragabi gives it to Mark and is like, you're going to take this in with you. Your innie will figure out what to do with it. And so now we've got high level access to security with Audi Mark knowing little other than Lumen bad, I guess. Lumen seem bad. Also, there's a dance scene in this episode. I'll link a couple different videos in the show notes, but this is they celebrate. I think it's Helly gets like 75% of one of the projects done that they're working on. And so they do a dance scene and they wheel in a cart with maracas. And it's a really, really fun dance scene. But ultimately, Dylan's innie attacks Mr. Milchek because he's like, tell me about my son. I have a son outside. I want to know about my son and my family and my life. And this all leads to all of the refiners learning about a thing called the overtime contingency, which fucking sucks.
Good. Great dystopian name.
Yeah.
The overtime contingency is a set of switches like nuclear switches that they can trigger to wake up the innies in the outside world. And so sandwiched with this nice dance scene is this chilling fact that Lumen can control them in a way outside of
Wherever
their normal
they
work
are.
world.
They can Winter Soldier them, basically.
Yep.
With
pretty
this
much.
knowledge is the time when Mark's like, hey guys, by the way, I have a security card now. It's a Lumen security card.
Who wants to fuck shit up?
Yep.
Yeah.
This is kind of it. And Dylan says, you know what? I got to see my outside world. I'll stay behind. I'll flip the switch. You three get out there and let's find out what's going on. Because like this feels bad.
That rules.
I have chills.
pretty great.
I have chills thinking about this episode because it ends with Mark is at home and he's drunk. His Audi's at home and he's drunk. He just got off of like a bad date. And he ends up ripping up a photo of him and his ex-wife, his dead wife.
Ooh.
And we find out that his dead wife is the Lumen counselor, Mrs. Casey, who is very much so alive.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's
Dude.
like the needle drop. I think
Uh-huh.
still the needle drop of all needle drops. Like I screamed.
Yes.
Like I was like I've never physically reacted to something so violently in a media than I did
Wow.
to that reveal.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they do it in a way where like you don't see it coming, right? Like
Mm-mm.
his wife's dead. That's the whole story.
dead.
Sure.
Like,
Sure.
why would you? It's not a comic book. Why would you think? So it's a whole like it's a pretty brutal scene with this woman he's dating, or whatever.
Yeah.
And he's like drunkenly taping this photo back together, and you're watching it. You think it means nothing until the camera fades in or zooms in, and you see his thumb over the image, and like that's the point at which like, oh, this is somebody we know. Oh fuck, who is this? And then that slow reveal, and it's like, holy shit, it's Miss Casey. it's pretty good.
So like, yeah, that is the point where you're like, oh, Lumen has to burn. Lumen has to burn. Something's fucked up here, and we don't know what it is. So, episode 8, titled What's for Dinner, which is funny that it's titled that because that's what Irving says every time he shows up to work. Every time he shows up to work and sees the other three, he goes, what's for dinner, kids? And
Good.
this is the episode where we find out about Irving's Audi. So, Irving lives in this apartment where he spends all night doing these identical all black paintings of a long dark corridor. Seems fine.
While
Ace of
listening
Spades.
exclusively to Ace of Spades. by
Two Ace of
Motorhead.
Spades.
Who
Yeah.
among us doesn't spend all night painting the same all black painting of a long dark corridor?
While
Yeah.
listening to
That's what I'm
Motorhead's
saying.
Ace of
While
Spades.
listening to Motorhead's Ace of Spades.
And what's also funny, so two things that are funny about this too. In an episode earlier in the season, we see him like looking at his nails and he's got like black dirt under them. And it's kind of a sign of like, oh, that's right. These people all have lives outside of their inside, like any work. And now we see why. Because he's just painting after painting after painting of all black corridors.
Yeah. Which is why
We all-
he's having the nightmare of the dark goop.
The
too.
goops.
we
We also find out his dog's name is Radar, which is really interesting because one of the fun facts he was given earlier in the season is your Audi enjoys the sound of radar, which is just like fun.
Cute.
That like
That
we had
is-
no way of knowing that, and then we
that's
find out his
good.
dog's name is Radar.
That's good.
Yeah. after a wellness session with Mark's innie, so there's a point where Mrs. Cobell says to Mr. Milchek, like, oh, we're going to give Mark another wellness session, or we're going to do another wellness session today. And Mr. Milchek goes, oh, for who? And he goes, Mark. And Mr. Milchek gives this look to Miss Cobell of like, hey, what the fuck are you doing making this man go have more wellness sessions with his wife who we've stolen?
A more knowing look than we previously thought. Yeah.
Yep. And so they have this wellness session, and it's at that point, like, we find out that Miss Casey is no longer going to be doing wellness sessions. She is being sent down to the testing floor, which when we get a glimpse of the testing floor, it is an all black hallway, a long black corridor that leads to a door, seemingly to match Irving's paintings, and something that might be important in season 2. Who's to say?
Another random fun fact we have at this point about Miss Casey is that she's referred to as a part-time innie, and is down there less than everybody else. And she says in this episode that like her whole life has been 170 hours long. Most of them have been in 30-minute wellness sessions.
Yes.
And it is.
Yes.
It paints a bleak fucking picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah. Miss Casey / Gemma is like his wife's name. Tough character. So the gang decide they're going to do a time heist. They decided it's time.
yeah, dude.
And so
Love me a time heist.
Yeah, man.
They say, hey, we're going to trigger the overtime contingency. We got to go. And like one by one, they start to board the elevator to leave. Before they do, Mark and Helly, their innies kiss. There is a long embrace of the will they, won't they pays off. They kiss. And it's like the fun thing they say is one of them says, in case we don't come back. And the other one says, in case we do.
Ooh.
And like, yeah, it's like a fun moment.
It's good.
And so we now see what everyone is doing, like while this is happening, right? So
Right before they do it, Irving says, "It's time to go see what's for dinner, everyone." And I really like that line.
Yeah. So Rickon is doing his fucking book reading. And that's where Mark, like, because they all leave and they go their separate way with the plan of Dylan triggering it later. And so Rickon is at his book reading, and Mark's Audi is talking to Miss Cobell, which again, pretending to be his sister's wet nurse. Mm-hmm. And in the conversation, Mark says, hey, like, and this is, again, these are all still their Audis. Mark tells Miss Cobell that he's planning to quit Lumen, and she agrees. And she says, yeah, maybe that would be good. Dylan, the cover for why Dylan gets to stay behind is that Dylan gets his waffle party. Kyle, if you had to guess what a waffle party might be, could you even like...
Well, the melon party, they all got melon, right?
They all did.
So logic would dictate the waffle party is similar, but different only in the sense that it's waffles. Your reaction to my guess earlier tells me it's different than that. And context clues tell me that this involves a shower drain somehow.
So for the waffle party, Dylan is taken to the perpetuity wing, the propaganda wing, where he gets to go to the recreation of the homestead of Keir Egan. And he gets to go to Keir Egan's recreated bedroom, where there is a table with a meal of waffles and syrups. Upon completion of said meal, he is told to go to Keir's bed, where there is a mask of Keir's face sitting there.
Like a large paper mache, like the Shia LaBeouf masks from Shia LaBeouf, Actual Cannibal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's a whip, like a cat of nine tails, that has one of the principles on each one of the heads.
Every
core principles.
Yeah.
Every new piece of information you tell me is more and more upsetting, Todd. Keep going.
Well, and then after which a handful of dancers masked, like, kind of approach into the room sexily. And each one of the masks is supposed to be like one of the, I read it out, like one of the
four
tempers.
humors.
The four
tempers.
The four tempers that you're supposed to like control.
Sure.
So here are these like dancers with masks kind of parading in. And I think the subtext here is that like sex things are to happen. But before you know it, it pans back to the bed and Dylan's just gone. Dylan has left the waffle party.
Noped on out of there.
Yeah, and for listeners at home, my notes for this is Todd tries to explain what happens here. That was my explanation there. So
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
So Dylan escapes. He makes it into like the room, ties up the door with his belt, and then manages to flip both the switches, triggering Irving, Helly, and Mark's innies to awaken outside. And that's how we get to episode 9. Not the you are, but the we are is what episode 9 is called.
Good.
Mark's innie wakes up, finds himself hugging Mrs. Cobell, his kindly neighbor, also floor manager of his inside world, because his innie is waking up to this. He kind of like plays it off for a second, but then he calls her Miss Cobell by name.
Sure.
To which she does like the eyes need to narrow in and I know something's going wrong. Look at him. So she calls Milchek and is like, hey, the OTC contingency, like OTC has triggered. Like we've got issues, my dude.
Things are bad.
Do you have eyes on Dylan and his pervert waffle party? What's going on? So Mark shares, he tells his sister Devin that he is his innie. And Devin ends up telling Mark that like, you know, your wife died. Like your wife, Gemma, like she died. And Mark tells her that like, hey, your wet nurse is my department manager. Like this, what is Mrs. Cobell doing here? And she goes, you mean Mrs. Selvig? She's like, no, Mrs. Cobell, she's the floor manager. She's my boss. And so that triggers a whole thing. Irving finds out that not only is his Audi painting limitless pictures of a dark hallway, but he also has an extensive list of files of Lumen employee information, emails, list of severed employees, and maps. And so he follows one of those maps because like it's obvious like his Audi, Irving's Audi is onto Lumen. Like he knows something's up. He's also ex-military too, if that gives more context. But he follows one of the maps and it ends up leading to Bert's home. So he finds where Bert lives, his innie boyfriend. Helly wakes up at a Lumen gala that is recognizing the success of the severance procedure. Further, we find out Helly is actually Helena Egan, daughter of Lumen CEO and creator of the severance procedure, James Egan. Like, you thought you were done when you found out that Mark's wife's not dead. And then you find out that Helly, or Helena, as her outside person is known, Helena underwent the severance procedure as a PR stunt to prove how safe severance is and how great it is, and that everyone should want this thing. And so she's supposed to give a speech. And so Helly goes out and starts giving the speech and starts saying how they are prisoners and they are trapped down there and they suffer and they all need to be freed while this is going on. Mark, as he's going through this whole situation at his sister's place, at his brother-in-law's book reading, which again fucking sucks.
At his hero's book reading.
And that's the thing. Any Mark idolizes Rickon because he read his book.
Oh,
so loves it.
Yeah,
Sure.
He's like, you're Rickon, like your book is like just
Yeah, it's his hero.
And so he's like looking through the photos in the house and he sees a picture of himself and his wife, Gemma, known to him as Miss Casey. And the season ends with Mr. Milchek getting into the room, tackling Dylan to trigger the OTC contingency off. And the last things we hear are Mark's innie looking at his family and yelling, she's alive. Season cuts.
Oof.
Yeah, man.
And then Avengers Endgame, 3 years past.
3 years have passed. Yeah, we are going to hit season 2, but real quick, we're going to take a break and we're going to roll right into it. So stay with us. All right, we're back. We're back, and there was definitely no cliffhangers, so we just start fresh. Season 2 starts with the episode titled "Hello, Miss Cobell," and so we episode 1 of season 2, I love this. I love this shit so much. And I said it before and I'm going to say it again. I love episode 1 because episode 1, season 2 is exclusively from the perspective of the innies. It is a whole episode that starts with Mark coming off the elevator. So the last thing he saw was screaming, "She's alive," and then seeing an elevator open.
And you didn't wait 3 years for a cliffhanger response, did you? Because you'd have to wait one more week, nerd.
You got to wait one more week to find out what the Audis were doing.
I didn't like this when I watched it, but in retrospect, I like it artistically, but it is the biggest fucking edging
Yeah.
that I think that anyone could have done.
Was this a like 2-part season 2 release?
It wasn't released at the same time, but it was basically
3 years.
It was written that way.
Yeah. 3 years later. So just here in 2025, they launched season 2.
Well, I'm sorry, I'm reading a little ahead. Were season 2 episodes 1 and 2 released at the same time?
They were not released at the same time, but they followed the same timeline. So they
right.
In a normal release schedule, they would have been. Yes.
So as we watched this, and I had said to my partner, I was like, "Oh, I bet the next week one's just the Audis." Pretty cool storytelling. So Mark stumbles off the elevator, panicking in his suit because they all wear suits to work, just running down hallways to get to Mrs. Casey's wellness room. Because at this point, he knows my Audi's wife, who everyone thinks is dead, is alive and is the counselor. Like, I need to go check that out.
Yeah.
And so he goes and knocks and finds out that that room is decommissioned. It no longer exists as a wellness room. It's I forget if it's anything. It's nothing. We also find out that Mr. Milchick, not Miss Cobell, is now running the severed floor. She is no longer in charge of the severed floor. And also the new deputy floor manager is a small child named Miss Wong.
Yeah. A small child. Like, we're talking like
12-year-old child.
14-year-old
child.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
We also find out that 5 months have passed since the overtime contingency took place. So we did get a 5-month jump. Mark is having these meetings with like Mr. Milchick because again he's like I'm here and that's strange, and they show him newspapers and headlines of how their innies have become the faces of severance reform because their innies were so brave to reveal all the shortcomings that they've changed the way they're doing things, and their innies are hailed as heroes on the outside world with parades. And like there's a picture of all 4 of them in like a convertible in a parade, which certainly not made up propaganda.
No,
certainly
definitely not. No.
We also see that Mark has a brand new team. The other 3 people aren't there. It is 3 brand new people on his team. One of which is I forget how you pronounce her first name. Alia Shawkat.
Alia.
Shawkat. Maybe Funke from Arrested Development.
If any Seinfeld fans will remember the guy that plays the head of NBC. He's one of he's in this team. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the Italian actor, I can never remember his name.
So there's a replacement team for him to work with. Anyway, throughout the episode, he sabotages them all and tells Lumen, "I'm not doing this work if I don't have my old team. Like, I'm not doing it. It won't. I refuse. Without them, I'm not doing anything." And so he leaves, and it shows him, step on the elevator, door shuts, door opens again. He's back at work. And we see Irving, Dylan, and Helly all show up on the severed floor as well. And again, all of them, the last thing they remember was like whatever their innies saw. So like Irving was pounding on a door screaming Bert, Helly was at a gala. Dylan got tackled by Mr. Milchick and seemingly probably was ushered off the floor. So all 3 of them show up for their return. The 4 of them are taken to the break room, which is actually converted into an actual break room. It's an actual office break room now because Lumen's changed, Kyle. I'm speaking straight to you. Lumen's changed.
They get breaks.
They get breaks.
Yeah.
They also watch an incredible propaganda piece that is narrated by Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves.
Really? I didn't know that was who narrated that.
He is the voiceover for the sentient Lumen building.
I like to think the claymation is a nod to that episode of Parks and Rec where Ben Wyatt does the claymation.
Yes.
Yes. So it's I don't have the video linked in here, but if I remember to, I'll throw it in the show notes because it's very good. It's a Lumen propaganda video that also has a ton of Easter eggs for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Which is really fun.
Okay, I have to go back and watch that.
The four kind of circle up and they share about what they saw in the overtime contingency. That was the plan. Like, this is the first time they've met since the overtime contingency. They all share what they saw. Dylan was like, hey, I was inside and got tackled, but it's cool. Helly lies about what she saw. She says that she didn't see anything except for like a gardener working on some plants. And did not share that she is in fact the heir apparent of Lumen and daughter of Lumen CEO Jaime Egan. Didn't share any of that, which is strange.
Understandable, I think.
Yeah, it's not like completely off base. I think it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
Irving, obviously heartbroken to find out that Bert, he'd also seen Bert has a partner. Like Bert is like married at a house. The other things we get here is that Milchek, in like trying to like sow some discontent and also gain favor, shares with Dylan that Lumen is building an Audi family visitation suite in the building. So Dylan obviously gives a great shit, like a deal of shits that he has a family. That's how you measure shits and deals.
Deal of shits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deal of shits. And
Howie
so
Mandel
to keep,
taught me.
there you go. The bad deal.
Deal or no deal reference. There you go.
That Milchek says, we're building a thing where your Audi's family can come visit you. Like, you can get to know your Audi's family here. We want you to be happy. Then they all go back to refining the scary numbers. They all say, okay, like the work's got to get done. I guess we're here. Episode 2. The opposite side of what we just saw. So now this is the episode everyone wanted of like, tell us what the Audis were doing. Give it to us. And so we see Milchek fire Irving and Dylan for what their Audis did. Like, Irving and Dylan both get fired from Lumen for what they did. Milchek goes to talk to Mark and is kind of like, hey, like, we'd love to keep you around. So sorry for the trauma that happened here. And instead, Mark quits. Mark's like, I'm just not doing it. I'm out. And his sister Devin is actually like, hey, you know, if you yelled she's alive, like, maybe you're talking about your wife. Like, maybe your wife's down there. And Mark's convinced that they're referring to Devin's baby because at the time they figured out that Miss Cobell, his employer, is a creepy woman who's also the wet nurse. They couldn't find the baby in the house. And so Mark's like, no, we were talking about your baby. Like, your baby's alive. We found your baby in the house. It's fine. And Devin's like, no, I don't think that's it. But the big thing to take away here is that Milchek and Lumen throw Miss Cobell under the bus. They're like, she had a perverse relationship. We would never be part of this.
He says she was trying to get into a throuple with Innie and Audi Mark.
Yeah. Oh. Which is a wild thing to say here because like we're not that far off of that discussion. And so, yeah, they basically, like, Miss Cobell is the villain. They throw her under the bus. We also meet a new character here. Since the old head of security died, we need a new person.
By
who's
way
the
of
muscle.
baseball bat to the dome.
God, we meet Lumen's security chief, just a boulder of a man named Mr. Drummond, who has the word frolic tattooed on his hand.
So
Good.
for all of you MIDI heads out there, fans of Secret Life of Walter Mitty, Mr. Drummond is the helicopter pilot that takes them to the Iceland, the shots that they did in Iceland. And that guy and Ben Stiller remained friends so much that he put him in this movie. This guy is one of 3 famous actors from Iceland who has done stuff outside of Iceland.
That's incredible.
Good.
In the episode where
wild.
he's on the podcast, he says that. They say like, I think they ask if he's like the most famous person from Iceland, and I think he says like, it's not that I am. It's just there's so few of us.
It's me and Bjork.
Yeah, man. So we meet Mr. Drummond, just a brick shithouse of a man. So Helly's Audi, who we're going to refer to as Helena Egan, that's Helly's Audi. She's in Lumen. Like, she is Lumen. She meets with Miss Cobell and basically says, we can't give you your old job back, but we'll give you a different job. Like, Mr. Milchek's going to run the severed floor. We're going to give you a different job. She gets pissed and leaves. She's like, absolutely not. I deserve everything here. And
Miss Cobell. leaves.
Yeah. And she's like, I deserve everything here. And Helena makes some remark of like, I think you're overestimating your contributions to this company.
Sure.
Or overvaluing, something like that. Basically saying like, don't get too big for your britches. Like you get what you get.
We don't need you. Yeah.
There's also a really fun scene where Helena's dad, Jamie Egan, like the head of Lumen, refers to Helena as a fetid moppet. Vibes are bad. Not a lot of love between Jamie Egan and Helena. So Helena films an apology video explaining what happened at the gala that night. Like, it's very clearly just a misunderstanding what happened. You see, she was on a medication for like a rash she had, and she shouldn't have had the glass of wine that she did, and medication and alcohol can mix really weird. And so that's why she said a string of things that were basically incoherent. That's what she said at that gala.
Definitely wasn't a Nazi wave or anything like that.
It was her heart goes out to you.
I do really like that in that video she specifies it was a non-lumen medication. I like that a lot.
Yeah, man.
That rules.
Yep. We also see when she's like filming this is that she's rewatching the security footage tape of any Helly and any Mark kissing over and over and over again.
Probably normal. Probably fine.
We also get to learn a bit about Dylan's Audie's life and that he is depressed. He's not a good partner or a dad. And now that he's been fired, he's really struggling to find a new job. I don't know if this is the episode we see the door factory, but
I think
it is.
I think it's this one, yeah.
Yeah, so we see him interview for a new job at a door factory, which makes Andrew's reference earlier a lot of fun. The bummer is that like he's interviewing and a couple things come out of that. One, he says he used to work at Lumen, and the interviewer is like, Lumen, they make their own doors. You know that? How dare they? They make their own doors. Like, and they do this whole thing about like, what's your favorite kind of wood for a door? What kind of finish? Like they're just talking shop about doors. And at the tail end of the interview, Dylan says something about how like he's a severed employee, and basically the guy is like, we don't want any of your kind around here.
Oh,
yeah. So he doesn't get that job. Struggles to get a job. Dylan's life is bad. Dylan is not doing great. Irving and Bert, they connect outside of Lumen, but Irving isn't sure of who Bert is, but just knows that the night before he showed up on his doorstep pounding on his door. Like, Irving's innie got him there, but obviously Irving's outie doesn't know who Bert is. But they kind of have like this little like kind of sketchy meet cute, and Bert's like, interesting. Fun. Milchek visits Mark again and it's like, listen, man, we really want you to come back. What if we give you a 20% bump on your salary? And that's all fine and good, but the real thing that we get out of this conversation is that Milchek reminds Mark and the viewers that Mark decided to get severed to dull the pain of his wife's death. He even makes some remark I wrote down here that is in response for like how happy his innie is when he's talking to his outie. The solace you've given him down there will make its way to you. It just takes time. So really laying it on of like you'd want to go back. Like you're happy down there.
Yeah,
you're happy down there. So we see Mark decide he's going to go back to Lumen. So we see his outie is walking into the building, but from a distance we see Helena, Milchek, and others, talking about him returning. And Drummond says, well, he's back and he needs a team. And Milchek says, yeah, I pulled in a team. I got a team. In 48 hours, I got a team. An old ex-severed person, and I flew in some other people. And the bottom line here is that he says, that doesn't matter. The only thing that matters here is that Mark needs to complete the project Cold Harbor. He has to complete Cold Harbor. Get ready for that to be mysterious and important.
Yep, sure that won't come back at all.
One of the other, I think, big reveals we get here is that, like, Milchek told the innies, or told Mark that it had been 5 months, and on the outside world, it's been 48 hours.
Yep.
This is all, like, intermixed with Milchek on his cool motorcycle going from place to place and showing up with a pineapple.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that's, like, his apology. It's his apology pineapple.
Yep. And so jumping to that point, we see where episode 1 picked up right there. Drummond, Milchek, and Helena do decide to give Mark his old team back. And that's when we see Milchek visit Dylan and Irving with pineapples to be like, we'd love to have you come back. They also agree that Helly needs to be part of that severed floor as well. Like, obviously we know the jig is up here. Helly and Helena, like, that's wild that the daughter of the CEO of Lumen severed herself, but she's part of the team and they need it. So we see all 4 of them, one by one, enter the Lumen elevator as they do, staggered out so they don't see each other. But of note, Helly's the last one to board. And as she does, every time they board the elevator, they board, the doors close, they descend, and you hear an elevator ding. When Helly boards the elevator, you don't hear the elevator ding, which becomes important. The episode ends with Mark's Audi. He's back home from work. He sees Miss Cobell / Selvig, his neighbor. People on the internet called her Mrs. Cobelvig after a while.
That in the show. Rickon says
Did they?
that. Yeah, that's Rickon's name for her.
That's right. That's right. God damn it, Rickon. The one good thing he's done. So Mark confronts her about everything. And like the last thing he says is, what do you know about my wife? What do you know about Gemma? And she like screams and pounds the horn and hauls ass away and drives into the night. End of episode 2.
Did either of you guys, Todd or Matt, did you catch the elevator ding thing? Because I super didn't.
I did not, no.
I did once I watched it again because someone on Reddit pointed it out.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Like the first time you watch, like the first time
Yeah.
I saw it, I was like, totally blew by me. Yeah.
Which,
Same.
spoiler alert for Kyle, it becomes pretty important.
Yeah,
I
it's
have a
important.
guess.
Context clues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're back, episode 3, back to doing it. Mark and Helly are passing out missing persons flyers on the severed floor of Miss Casey / Gemma. They end up finding a room that's rolling green hills and baby goats. It is the mammalians nurturable department.
Important note,
Yeah.
we didn't
Yep.
talk about the goats in season 1. There's a scene in season 1 where Mark and Helly are like just kind of wandering around and they just find a room with a very scared man who's feeding a baby goat and he's saying, they're not ready.
yet."
They're not ready. It is so it is so unnerving and so like Kubrick's The Shining of a moment.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Yep.
and for the 3 years that this show went on, it was like, what are the goats? What are the
Yeah.
goats? And this
And
was
we-
the resolution of the goats.
And it's not even the resolution of the goats. It's just more
the
goats.
further of the goats.
More
Yeah.
furthering the goat plot
Yep.
line.
Yeah.
So the mammalians nurturable department is led by a woman named Lorne, who is actually Gwendolyn Christie of Game of Thrones, the real big woman.
Yeah.
And so they're basically like, what are you doing here? MDR is a bunch of monsters. And they're like, we're looking for Miss Casey. And they have flyers. And so the mammalians nurturable department decides to not stop them in what they're doing because they recalled how kind Miss Casey was to them.
Oh.
That they're like, oh yeah, the staff counselor, like she's really great. Like we're not going to fight you here on Goat Mountain. You're good.
Mark
Yeah.
also gives a really good apes together strong speech.
Good.
Yeah. We get to see the payoff of the visitation room. So Dylan's innie gets to have a visitation with his Audi's wife, Gretchen. The whole thing is fascinating and bananas. Like the concept
Fucking
of
brutal, man.
yeah, the concept of like, here is this woman who is my Audi's wife, and I know that, and she knows who I am. I'm the innie, but we don't know each other.
But everything else is meeting an entirely new person. Yeah.
Right. And he is just like fascinated with her, and like it is both bizarre and also like hints of wholesome. And so they hug at the end of it. Like it's a nice meeting, they hug. I'm sure that won't get weird. We meet another character, Natalie, who's important, but like not quite as important as some of the other ones that have been going on here. But Natalie is the handler of Lumen's board. So she's always got an earpiece in and is like, oh, the board's speaking. Yes, that will work. Or she'll meet with someone and they'll be talking. Like it'll be Milchek and Milchek will be talking and she'll be like, oh, the board hung up. Like it's very much so like the board's probably real, but everything they do is so goddamn condescending to whoever they're talking
Oh,
to.
yeah.
Yeah.
One of the prevailing theories in season 1 is the goats were the board.
There's a lot. Yeah, I am not convinced Board isn't disembodied. Like
The head in a jar.
yeah, head in a jar. But anyway, we meet Natalie because in this moment, at least, she's meeting with Rickon to talk about adapting his book, The UUR, but for innies. Basically, like, we want you to write a Lumen propaganda book talking about how great innies' lives are. And I don't know if it happens this episode, but it does happen where Rickon and Devin are talking about it. And Devin's like, hey, this is vile. Don't do it. And Rickon's like, yeah, but it will be financially lucrative. if
Rickon
we-"
sells out like a big old bitch.
Yeah. He like, I forget what words he uses, but he's like, there is a financial encouragement behind making this decision. So that's a fun thing going on.
Yep.
So Mark and Devin start a new plan. So they got to try and communicate to like any Mark something. They got to get a message to any Mark. They're trying to talk to each other because Outie Mark and any Mark can't talk, obviously. They come up with the idea of what if we burn an image into like if you look at something too long or like what if we burn an image into your eyes so that when you get down the elevator, it's still in your innie's eyes. And the way that they show how he figures it out is one day he goes to work and he counts how many seconds it is between getting out of the car and hitting the elevator. And so he counts and then he counts in his head because he takes his watch off when he gets in the elevator. So then at the end of the day, when he comes off the elevator, whatever that number was he was saying, he knows it takes that many seconds to get from his car to the elevator. Spoiler alert, this plan does not work. It does not work, though he tries really hard to like burn an image into his eyeballs. And so when he's talking to Ragabi, that ex-Lumen scientist, about it, she's like, yeah, don't fucking do that. You're going to go blind. It's not going to work. Why would you think that that's going to be a good answer here? Instead, let me chop into your brain. And yeah. So she basically says like, hey, I can help reintegrate you. It's what I was trying to do with Petey, who LOL, he died. We'll do it better. I can help you. And like Mark's not totally sold on it until she's like, hey, your wife is alive down there. And if you want to get her back, like this is what it's going to take.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, fuck it. And so the episode ends with they're in his dirty basement. He's in like a chair turned around backwards. And she's like drilling into his brain as the walls of the basement start to kind of blend with like the walls of the severed floor. And so we're seeing the beginning of what reintegration will look like as the two worlds kind of blend. Nothing prepares you for episode 4.
Just a complete left turn.
Woe's Hollow. This is the field trip episode. The Magic School Bus is going to Pluto right now.
Yeah. It's the beach party episode.
Yeah, it's the beach party.
Yeah. So in this field trip, Woe's Hollow, they do an ORTBO. ORTBO is an acronym for Outside Retreat Team Building Occurrence. I'm going to gloss over some of it, but like the way that this starts is like Mark's just outside in the cold wearing like a Russian hat and jacket.
Yeah.
It's all filmed in upstate New York, but like they literally are finding each other all bundled up in winter gear. And then they look at a cart TV that's on the side of a mountain that's playing a video from Mr. Milchek. That's like, this is Mr. Milchek from work. Welcome to the ORTBO, the Outdoor Retreat Team Building Occurrence. And effectively to like find what they need to do. Oh yeah, and this is offered because like their innies complained like, well, we're trapped down here. We don't see an outside world. So in ways that they do not explain, they got all of them to this location without knowing the others were there and triggered their innies for an outside sleepover for the weekend.
And they put them all in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
Seems like a bad idea on Lumen's part.
Well, Kyle, we're going to keep going. And so
Lumen is, again, like that's the great thing about like Lumen is not a smart company. Lumen is a huge conglomerate
giant
corporation who everything is just a little stupid.
Yeah. With limitless resources to solve any problem, they don't have to overthink that problem.
Yep.
So as the four of them are like trying to explore the mountainside, they're following the guidance of these mannequin-like robot versions of themselves that just stand still and point in a direction.
Oh, that's horrible.
It's bananas.
If you watched Donnie Darko and loved it as a teenager, you will love Severance.
Yeah, they explain what the metaphor is. I think it's like you are leading yourself or something.
Sure.
I forget. Like, it's one of those things. The internet went wild with theories. And
Internet goes wild with theories. The explanation is like, I could see a corporation doing this stupid metaphor for some reason. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't wholly unlike how we finished pledging for our fraternity, our shared fraternity.
Yeah, that's true.
I would actually go so far to say it was the Occam's razor effect of like when we were all like, oh, Mephisto's and everything in WandaVision, right? Nope. Wanda went crazy. That's what it actually was. Mm-hmm. So anyway, they make their way to they find the like cave of Woe's Hollow, which has the lore of Keir Egan, the founder of Lumen. It's like the 4th Tenet book they had to find. It's an old dusty tome in a cave that Lumen probably printed off and put it there last week.
It is a D&D campaign.
Yes. And so they find this and they go to the campsite, and there is Mr. Milchek and Miss Wong. And I think Miss Wong has her theremin at the campsite.
She does have the theremin at
she
the
plays
campsite.
the theremin. It's great. And Mr. Milchek's talking about like the importance of Keir Egan and his journey and the clashes he had with his brother, Dieter Egan, and how Dieter Egan was vile for the things he did in the woods. Well, Helly starts to laugh, and she's like, he was jerking off in the woods. That's what he was doing. Like, it actually like says how he was spilling his seed recklessly, the seed of Egan.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, he was jorking it. Like, and so Mr. Milchek is like, you know, Helly R, you would do right to, you know, behave yourself. And she's like, whatever, he was jorking it. It's funny. So Irving, and like, again, talking more about what happened in the overtime contingency, Irving is like, it's so weird that Helly's lying to us. Like, Helly's not telling us the truth. Like, why won't she tell us? And like at one point he's like, no, Helly, what did you see? And she's like, well, I was outside of what I think was my house, and I saw a gardener. And he goes, this all happened at night. You have night gardeners, huh? Nighttime's a weird time for a gardener to be gardening. And she's like, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, Helly and Mark's innies bone down in a tent. They bone down. And then we all realize how weird this is all going to get, because you think about the implications of what is happening. During which said boning, Mark hallucinates and sees Gemma's head on Helly's body.
Because he's slowly reintegrating.
His reintegration is making things trippy.
Yep.
Yeah. And so Irving falls asleep outside and has nightmares, which is a lot of stuff. But the one that is most relevant is that a hint that like Helly is lying and she is on the side of Lumen. Like his inside monologue. Because again, like Audi Irving has been suspicious of Lumen for a long time. And it's almost like some of that's bleeding in subconsciously.
Yeah.
So Irving corners Helly and is like, you're not Helly. Like, Helly's never been cruel. You're not Helly. So Irving tries to fucking drown Helly. There is a scene that I have linked in the show notes, and it's in these notes we're working off of, where Kyle, go ahead and just watch it for a second.
I think I've seen like a still from this scene a lot. It's a minute. Okay.
Yeah, we'll cut out the dead air here. I'm gonna watch it again.
Do it, Seth.
Do it, Seth is a banger of a line. Yeah. The line is said at one point of who would have a power to send their Audi to the severed floor, and that's when he's like, she's an Egan. But yeah, that line of like, do it, Seth is said with such like poison and vitriol. It's such a good delivery.
Yeah.
And so. For those who didn't watch the video, like Milchek, he radios that remove the Glasgow block, whatever that means. Helly has been Helena throughout the entirety of season 2, which makes the fact that her and Innie Mark boned not 24 hours ago way weirder.
Not better.
Yep.
Yeah, certainly not better. The episode ends with Milchek gives this long, drawn-out speech about how Irving is to not just be fired, but erased from the history of Lumen. He will be nothing, as though he never existed, as Irving walks out into the woods.
Oh.
Yeah. Episode 5, Trojan Horse. Following the Ortbo, because that was fun what they did. Helena, so this is back Audi Helena, is told by kind of the other people in Lumen headquarters that Helly has to go back to the severed floor. That Mark will not finish Cold Harbor, that really important file that is at 81%, unless Helly goes back because she's part of the team. And Cold Harbor, it has to get done. So much so that there's a quote that I wrote down here. Mark Scout's completion of Cold Harbor will be remembered as one of the greatest moments in the history of the planet.
Oh.
Yeah. So Cold Harbor, pretty big deal. The work's mysterious and important.
Work's mysterious and important.
So part of this whole, so you kind of see now that the refiners hold some weird amount of power because they know that they're there, that they went out of their way to get Mark back. And Mark said, I get my team or the work's not getting done.
Yeah.
So these refiners kind of have a weird power dynamic now between them and Lumen and Milchek stuck in the fucking middle of both of them.
Yeah.
And so Dylan says to Milchek, I want a funeral for Irving. Irving's dead now because his Innie's never coming back, so he's dead. We want a funeral. And at first, Miss Huang's no, we're not, you shouldn't do that. But anyway, they do it anyway, and she plays the theremin at the funeral.
It's really good.
Yeah. And so while they're there, one of the last things Irving said as he walked away was hang in there, kiddo. And in the break room where they have the funeral, there's a poster that says hang in there. And behind that poster, in the break room.
Yeah.
Behind that poster, Dylan finds a map of Lumen that Irving was working on.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's now a thing again. And there's now this incredible amount of tension between Mark and Dylan and Helly. Because this is Helly. It is Helly. It is not Helena. Helly's here. But they're hey, you're fucking Egan. And also, you've been here multiple days saying that you're Helly. How do we know that you're Helly now?
Bear in mind, though, that Helly Helly went from the gala at the end of season 1 to being fucking drowned.
Yeah.
So she has no idea what, she's all over the place. So she's what did you guys see? And we're dude, girlfriend, that was 2 months ago.
Yeah, we're over that now.
Yeah.
There's
way
also
behind.
that was a whole goat scene ago.
well, there's also this moment. So Mark obviously has a weird dynamic with Helly now, but they're still looking for Miss Casey, Mark's Audie's wife, and they're yeah, we're looking for Miss Casey. Miss Casey's alive, and Dylan makes some remark hey, are you gonna tell her that that's your Audie's wife? There's this whole moment where he's well, yeah, it's also my Audie's wife, and Helly's oh, well, what does that mean? And he's I don't fucking know. It's my Audie's wife. We're all just figuring this out as we go. Milchek is he's on the warpath following the Orpo. So he has his annual review and they nail down all the things he's done wrong, which includes the disastrous Orpo, but also complaints you put paper clips on wrong and that you use too big of words. And so it's a whole big thing. So he's gotten this blistering review back from the execs. And so he's basically told you gotta straighten up your ship. You gotta get after people. And so Mark puffs his chest out to Milchek, and Milchek leans into him and is did you and Helly R catch up? Did you tell her that you fucked her Audi at the Ortbo? Huh. And walks away.
Elevator doors closed.
Yeah, elevator doors closed. Meanwhile, we see Irving, his Audi's alive, and he connects with Bert, who Bert invites him over to dinner the next night. The vibes are strange, and I'll talk about that
Oh.
after Matt leaves.
Those aren't good vibes.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird that Bert, who
weirdly
retired from Lumen, who has kind of been following Irving as Irving's been trying to figure out who he is, suddenly invited him over for dinner. Seems fine.
Yeah.
The episode ends with Mark's innie and outie worlds like really blending together more and more, and not in ways that he can control. Like, obviously, this is going to be a messy, messy ride.
Okay, so Kyle and Matt are going to bounce out. Todd and I will finish the season. Matt, I need to know right now, what do you think that Lumen is doing?
Yeah, I would love to hear that from, I mean, Kyle doesn't have as much context, but like...
Let's go Kyle first and then me.
Sick.
I'm guessing, well, so for a while I thought it was like processing the data of like the bad real world effects Lumen had on the world, like the deaths they may cause or something. The most important, the Cold Harbor will be remembered as the most important thing in the history of the planet or whatever. Has really thrown me. I don't know if I have a good guess following that information and like the complete lack of context I have now. So
there is a moment earlier on where the innies talk about it. Like, what do you think we're doing outside? And Dylan says, well, if people are willing to like sever themselves from reality, it's got to be bleak out there.
Yeah.
Like, it's got to be bad.
Yeah.
And he says, I think that we are cleaning the ocean because the world has been flooded and it's mostly ocean and everything we like grab is trash. And then they're like, Irving thinks we're censoring swear words out of movies. He removes swears from movies.
Yeah. So I pretty early on watching this, like probably episode 3 or 4, I'd have to go back and pinpoint the exact point of season 1. I put down a theory talking to Maddie that I'm still standing by, again, with 5 episodes left to watch. I think Lumen, definitely a cult. We find out that Lumen was established in like 1870 or 1840 or some number like that.
Alongside like other major
Yeah.
Right. Like it all started there.
Yeah.
well, and like a half the more modern religions in America to go with our cult half. Yeah.
So I think Lumen is a life cult on the hunt for immortality. Specifically, I think they are trying to revive or bring back Kier in some way. And there's a mention in the season 1 finale at the gala. They say something along the lines of, oh shit, now I'm not going to remember. Nope, I don't know. I don't remember. There's something they said at the gala that kind of like led me in. Oh, I remember. They say soon everybody in the world will be severed or something like that.
Yeah.
Is like
Oh.
mentioned by this senator who is very much a side plot that there's like a senator lobbyist pro Severance guy. And I really feel like the goal is immortality through Severance, where they can basically create a world sans death where, you know, whatever happens to your body, your mind stays in the Lumenverse or whatever.
Lumenverse is good.
Yeah, that's kind of my prediction.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to watch these last few episodes. There was absolutely no way that I could let this podcast spoil it for me. So
you gotta let it. Yeah, you gotta sit on them and like really digest.
This is a good place for both of you to stop because now, like Kyle, it doesn't have to ruin the back half of season 2.
I was gonna say it like. I get the sense this is where all the things start popping off. So maybe I'll save it for my watch. And yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, you two skedaddle. We'll continue taking listeners on a ride.
All right. Good luck,
this is
boys.
me skedaddling.
Okay. Matt and Kyle are gone. Andrew and I have seen this deeply. And so we're going to go through the rest of the remaining couple episodes and also start getting into like, what the fuck is Lumen doing? Because I love hearing what Kyle and Matt had to say.
I think Matt was pretty much Pretty close. Yeah.
I think so too. Like to take
Yeah.
just a hot second to theory craft in the moment that I'm pretty firm into like there's no way they're not trying to bring back Kirigan.
They're,
like, there's
they're
no
absolutely
way.
trying to
But they're also
recreate. Yeah.
they're also not doing a straight up like get out. Like
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
I think it's that and like knowing what we're gonna talk about with like Gemma and what's going on with her. I think it is
Yeah.
like it is somewhere between immortalizing Kier Egan in everlasting life, and also maybe the board might be digital voices in a box,
Or goats.
put that with trying to remove people's trauma to tame the four tempers.
That's exactly it. It's
Yep.
So I think there is the Lumen, and this is why like I made the distinction earlier. I think there is Lumen as the company, as a pharmaceutical company,
yeah.
and then there's the Kier cult.
Yeah.
And I think 80% of the time those two things are intertwined.
Mhm.
But I definitely think there is a goal for the Kier cult, and I think there's a goal for Lumen.
Yeah.
Lumen Industries, I definitely think is like they are trying to sell a product that says, hey, you never have to feel pain anymore.
Yep.
Like we can cure your physical pain. How about we cure your mental pain? That is
Yep.
like Lumen Industries is trying to create a product that will remove pain and emotional pain from civilization.
Yeah.
End sentence.
Yep.
The Kier cult is doing
Getting
other
a
shit.
lot weirder with it.
Yeah. And like, again, both of those things are intertwined because both of them equal power and money and access. But like the left hand is different from the right hand.
Yeah. Let's hit these last couple episodes.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So Matt and Kyle are gone. We hit episode, I think this is 6, Attila.
Yeah.
You know, Mark tells Helly that they shared vessels,
Yep,
which
they
is
shared
really funny.
vessels.
A thing that we had said earlier. So, and Helly's like, "Hey, that's fine. It sucks you didn't know it was me. Also, I want us to share vessels. Let's get to it." What's funny is so earlier on, when Mark had his wellness session with Miss Casey in season 1, she had made 2 remarks that rang through. One, your innie can put up a tent in 5 minutes or less.
Yeah.
He has now had sex with Helly and Helena in
a tent.
Yep.
My brain went to the baby or the cradle from the next episode.
Oh no, I didn't get that one.
Let's come back to that.
Yeah. The other one was Miss Casey tells Mark S, your Audi likes 2 scoops of ice cream, but they must be the same flavor. And I think there's a wild parallel when he had sex with Helena and Helly.
Yeah. It's pretty good.
So, yeah. Dylan gets Dylan's innie gets to hang out with his Audi's wife. They kiss. Whoops. It's just one of the things of love triangles in Severance just become wild. We get that dinner with Irving and Bert and Fields where we find out that Fields thinks that innies have souls and can go to heaven, and Bert has done crimes. Bert has done Lumen crimes for decades, and that kicker of like, oh, he's been with Lumen for 30 years, and Irving's like, I thought the severance procedures only
Bert
been around for like
go home, you're drunk.
13. Yeah.
Yep.
Which like that with Drummond rummaging through Irving's stuff, like obviously shit's going down. That is also the episode where Mark goes to get Chinese and Helena Egan follows him and does the weirdest, grossest meet cute ever.
God. And purposefully or maybe purposefully misnames his deceased wife. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. I think in the podcast they talked about it and she just made up a name. But like it very obviously meant to not be Gemma. He goes and gets more.
Yeah.
More return,
he does more brain surgery.
More brain surgery. Chikai Bardo, which
Here's
I
our
think,
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind episode.
Yep. Chikai Bardo, which I think is what we find out is like man fighting his own ego. Isn't that the combat of the 2 dudes fighting is actually a man fighting his own.
It's the innie and the Audi.
Yep, absolutely. Listeners, this is the one I put a note in here. This is the only episode I watched one time. I did not watch this one multiple times because it's tough. So
It's hard to watch. It's really good. It's just
really
it's
good.
hard to watch. Yeah.
we see the love story of Mark and Gemma, how they fell in love, they got married, they struggled to have a child. And after Gemma experienced a miscarriage, they went to a fertility clinic. And who was running that clinic but Lumen?
Yep. Of course.
So we flash to see a very alive Gemma stuck on the testing floor where each and every day she is forced to experience micro and macro traumas
Jesus.
in a different severed version of herself. So like it is her down there, and every time she goes into a new door, which keen-eyed viewers see that some of those doors align with some of the files that Mark's been working on, and there's a door titled Cold Harbor. That it's everything from going to the dentist and plane turbulence and writing notes, and it's all run by a creepy dude named Dr. Maurer, who we all want to fight.
We all want to fight because this is all fetish shit. Like it's just scenes and scenes of like weird fetish shit, and it sucks.
Yep. In the Audi world, Mark's unconscious. Him and Ragabi, or Devin and Ragabi, decide what to do. The Devin's like, we got to call Miss Cobell. And Ragabi's like, I'm out. See you later. Your brother's head is a gaping wound. Good luck out there going back to Lumen. There is a whole moment back on the testing floor that Gemma says, like, I want to leave. And Dr. Maurer's like, you can't. And also your husband got remarried and moved on. So why would you even want to? And she makes a break for it, gets to the elevator, becomes Miss Casey, and Mr. Milchek turns her around and sends her back, which like
heartbreaking.
Oh, dude, it hurts so bad.
Yeah.
I have to laugh. So the next episode, Sweet Vitriol, the internet.
I know everyone hated this
because
episode.
Parts of the internet is movie illiterate and doesn't like context or complex characters. I guess they wanted her to be a corporate stooge that just got cut out of the equation. When in reality, this is the Miss Cobell lore dump that she's from.
I love this episode. I do have problems with some of the reveals and like how convenient Cobell is at this time, but I do love this episode as an episode of television.
Yeah, I like what they went with. The fact that like she returns to her old town. We find out that it was a the parallels between like coal mining towns and what they did.
Yeah. It's
that like Lumen was
boomtown.
Lumen was the factory. And it shut down, and the town wasted away because of it, just poisoned with their chemicals. That she runs into an old child worker, like when she was doing child labor in the Lumen factory
in the ether mine.
That the town is still like hooked on ether, which we have to assume that Lumen was processing.
Yeah, ether just being like the stuff that like it's like the stuff that. It's like not like laughing gas, but the stuff that like almost like chloroform.
Yeah, it's some sort of
it's
like
just like used in medical procedures.
Yeah. So we find Ms. Cobell goes to her mother's house where her mother's been dead, but her aunt lives there, Sissy, and we find out that like her mom had died while she was at a Lumen boarding school for sure. And that her mom was her mom or her aunt's a true believer in all things Lumen, like fully in on the cult, and that no one is to go back into her mom's room until all who knew her sit with Kier. Like basically no one's allowed up there. And episode goes on. Ultimately, Ms. Cobell finds her old records from about this time, and we see all of her awards, her Lumen awards and everything else, and that she reveals that she developed the severance procedure. She developed the chip. She came up with it, not Jamie Egan. And that is like the big reveal here, that she knows it all, and she's going to, presumably, maybe she's going to burn it down.
Less important is she got the same fellowship that Miss Wong got, which is how we understand like, oh, this is how a 15-year-old is found her way to the severance floor or the severed floor.
Absolutely. So she ends the episode by taking a call from Devin, and Devin's like, hey, Mark's being reintegrated by Ragabi. And Miss Cobell's like, oh, he's not dead yet? Good, I'm on my way. Like, awesome. And I think my read on this moment and like Cobell in general is that she has not burnt Lumen. Like, I read this as, and everything else that we'll see is that she would be thrilled to be back in the good graces of Lumen.
She's
that,
purely in it for herself. She's a
oh
chaos.
yeah, that if anything, like she's mad at like Helena Egan.
Yes.
She's mad at like maybe Mr. Milchick as a cog in the machine, but she's mad at an Egan, not Lumen.
That's correct. I totally agree with you.
And Anne Egan too, because she had her own shrine. Like
she sure did.
Yeah.
Well, and we learn why, right? Because like not only is this the company town, like this is the kind of the like heart of the religion. Like her aunt that she grew up with is this like crazy like nun in the Kier cult. Like it's yuck.
So episode 9, penultimate episode of season 2, we see Helena Egan swimming laps, which is a fun parallel to her being almost drowned 4 episodes ago. And for breakfast, having a single hard-boiled egg.
Eats egg real weird.
That Jaime Egan watches her eat, and he laments that he wishes she ate them raw. Which, if you go back to episode 1, one of the questions that they're asked as they enter the severed floor is, "What is Jaime Egan's favorite breakfast?" And it's raw eggs.
Raw egg.
So that's a fun thing.
Yeah.
Also, he's a fucking freak show. So
he's a fucking freak show. God.
Yep. As Andrew said, Miss Wong gets sent to the same boarding school as Miss Cobell does, but not before Mr. Milchick makes her shatter her toy with the bust of an Egan.
Her one toy that's all she does all day.
Right. Dylan's wife tells Outie Dylan that she kissed his innie, to which he says, "I'm gonna go kill him. I'm gonna go quit so he's dead." And he does use the phrase, "You're using my own body to fucking cheat on me." So severed love triangles are going great. The pause for me in this episode was when Irving gets home and Radar is sitting just staring into a dark room.
Yeah.
And then you see Bert sitting in a chair reading the notes, and one of which that Irving thinks that Bert might be a Lumen goon.
Yeah.
And the fact that scene ends with Bert being like, "Come take a ride with me." And I'm like, "Oh, Irving's gonna die. Irving's gonna wear cement shoes."
Christopher Walken, like what a masterclass. Like he plays this. He is so creepy in this scene.
Yeah. Drummond tells Mr. Milchick he's got to finish Cold Harbor. Mark isn't here and it's 9 a.m. What's going on? Mr. Milchick tells him to eat shit. Devour feculence.
Devour feculence.
It means eat shit, which is just amazing. There's the weird the meeting that Mark and Devin and Cobell have, where basically they're like, or Miss Cobell says, "If you finish Cold Harbor, then Gemma's dead." And Mr. Milchick calls Mark and is like, "Hey, why aren't you at work?" And I think the highlight of this scene for me was that Milchick calls Mark, and Mark's like, "Well, I'm sick," and Mr. Milchick's like, "We'll send a car to get you to the hospital because we care so much about you." And Mark's like, "Fuck it, I just can't do it today."
Yeah,
can't do it today.
A personal day.
I just can't do it today. I need a day. And like Mr. Milchick pauses and says like, "Hey, well, you promised to be there tomorrow." And it's the line where Mark says, "I mean, work is just work, right?" Like when he says that, and Milchick kind of has a pause and he's like, yeah, man, you might be onto something.
Yeah, it's a really good moment.
Dylan's in, he tries to propose to his Audie's wife. That breaks your heart. That hurts to see.
And then when she walks in, he goes, "Gretchen!"
Yeah, man, that was really tough. We do get the moment where Bert drops Irving and Radar off of the train station and basically says like, "You have to get on a train and leave, and don't tell me where you're going, and don't come back because Lumen's gonna murder you. Lumen's going to kill you, and this is the only way. And also, we can't be together, and I'm so sorry." And we watch Irving's heart break. And then he gets on a train and leaves.
Probably never to come back again on the show.
Probably if they send a really loved character away the episode before the last episode, it means they're never coming back. We get that weird moment where Helly, like any Helly, has a moment with Jaime Egan.
Oh yeah,
and he says
because he shows up on the severed floor.
Yeah, he's like, "You tricked me, my Helly." And you're like, "I hate you."
Did you get big Tywin Lannister vibes from?
Yeah, I thought the ending of that meeting was going to be violence. Spoiler, it's not.
Murder him with a stapler.
Yeah, and I was like, you know what? Good for her if she does.
Yeah.
This was weird for me, but when they started referencing when Cobell was like, "We can take Mark to one of the birthing cabins," that's when I was like, "Oh shit, that's right. Lumen owns birthing cabins."
Yeah.
And when she was like, "There are special ones for severed people," And I was like, icky, gross. I don't want to think too much about that.
Well, and then the other layers, there are special ones for James Egan's
James
Egan's affairs.
Yep,
where they force severance on them so that they don't know that they had a child with James Egan.
Yep, when they roll in and Cobell's like, it's one of James. Like,
yeah. Fuck, dude.
Yeah, dude. And the ending of the episode being when Mark sees Cobell as Devin says, hey, do you remember the last thing you said to me? And he goes, she's alive. And that was the ending of that. Cold Harbor. Here it is. Helly's interaction with James Egan isn't her murdering him, but instead is James Egan saying that he loves Helly more than Helena, that he sees Kier within Helly, and he doesn't, and Helena sucks, and also that he has a ton of secret children, that he has sired multiple other secret children.
Because of course he has. Because he's just weird old Elon Musk. Of course he has.
It's a very specific energy.
Yeah.
Mark does share. He hasn't finished Cold Harbor, so Gemma's still alive, and Cobell says how to get him out, which just includes this wild heist of of his innie, and then his outie, and then his innie, then his outie, then back in reverse.
Is this also when we learn what the MDR team is doing? Is this what she said? Yeah. The numbers are your wife, Mark.
Yeah. A whole thing, which I think we kind of got to that point. Like people were getting that. The kicker for me in this, before the cinematic masterpiece that is Mark talking to Mark, was when Mark's like, and if I do that, what happens? And they're like, well, I mean, the obvious thing. And so I did think, so this is where we got Devin giving a camcorder to Mark Innie, and just the entire scene of them talking to each other is so good.
Really, really good.
And it really made Outie Mark the villain, which I did not anticipate. Yeah. And because again, we've watched this show as we empathize with the innies, but we're like, I get why an Outie would do that. I get it. And then the fact when he was like, oh yeah, I'm reintegrating to get you out, we together, which is a fucking lie.
Yeah, 100% is.
And at that point, that's when I was like, oh, that's grimy, and this is not going to work for you.
I think your opinion of how you see Outie Mark is exactly connected to what you think an innie is, right? Because I kind of go on along the lines of they're the same person. Dylan, it's not is Dylan cheating with Dylan? No, or Dylan's wife cheating with Dylan? I don't not necessarily, because it's just Dylan. It's just how do you see memory? But then it gets into the Theseus' ship of it all, which is getting into what I think this is eventually going to, which is obviously very much setting up innies versus the outies, right?
Yep, I think that's what season 3 is.
That's the inherent conflict, is all of these innies are going to be in stark retribution against the outies. But
the trigger here was when Outie Mark was like, I've heard you got a relationship, Helene. What you
just
and
what Helena does,
you and Helene. Imagine that, but for years, and that's what I have with my wife.
Yeah, so and fucking condescending,
dude. And the kicker for me, and again, I know this is what I love about the show and how they film it, is when Innie Mark is the next thing I better see is the severed floor. You'll never see your wife again. Scene cuts, he steps off the elevator.
Yep.
That happened, and I was full grip on the chair, that I was whatever. Because again, it's the storytelling that happens off scene, off for me, where it's that meant that all those Outie characters had to have a discussion at that point, and they're like, this is all we can do.
This is it. Yeah.
This is it. We just have to figure that out.
Yep.
That also then gives us that scene where Dylan does his resignation request and gets the response back from his Outie, whereas Outie basically says first off, fuck you. Second, knowing that there's an innie version of me who is a self-confident badass better version of me makes me want to be better on the outside. And you're all right, man. That feels pretty good.
Yeah.
We do get to that point where Gemma gets dressed in the clothes that she was last wearing when we saw her.
When she got presumably kidnapped or whatever.
Yeah, dude. That's the question I want answered. I
want to talk about that. Yeah,
yeah. We'll get that. So we'll wrap this and we'll spiral for a little bit.
We'll spiral.
She goes into that room. There's the blood prick of the finger to get into that room. It is a crib that she has to disassemble, and the whole hope is that she feels nothing while she does it.
I didn't catch this when we watched it, but the podcast that other podcast, We Know Severance, pointed out that Cold Harbor is the name of the crib manufacturer.
Oh, I wondered where that came from. That sucks. Yeah, that's good. Good for them.
It's very good. It's very good.
But I guess prior to that, for the timeline, like Mark does finish Cold Harbor. Him and Gemma, or him and Helly, have that moment where he kind of tells her everything, and she's like, "I just, wish we had more time." And then we get an animatronic Keir Egan stand up with Mr. Milchek.
And the show loses its mind for 10 minutes.
The fucking Lumen marching band called Choreography and Merriment, which this episode was like 77 minutes long.
Yeah,
it was long.
It was a short movie.
Yeah, and I do like to think that whether it was Ben Stiller or Erickson, one of them was like, this episode has to be almost 80 minutes long. And they're like, well, why? We did the storyboarding. Storyboarding only took us to like 65 minutes. And they're like,
nope, 10-minute band, marching band.
I made a call. What if we have an 80 person marching band that it's a severed group on the floor? Yeah. Which is bananas.
So silly.
Link in the show notes.
It's great. I mean, they needed to outdo the music dance experience.
Yeah, they had to do something that was just, and again, like I think you and I talked about this maybe off recording, that like it's so funny that Milchek delivers that information to Dylan and is like, here's this letter. I've got other things to attend to. I'm going to let you read it. And he sprints out of the room.
He fucking bolts.
We know two things. One, he had to go cue himself up for one-sided stand-up and a marching band. Yeah. And two, dude in his off time is practicing with a severed marching band.
Right.
Which is he's funny.
He's got a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah. As we said, Gemma's working on that baby's crib. Horrifying. The pervert scientists are talking about how the barrier is holding, which kind of gives us the picture of like whatever they're doing is blocking out trauma. They've done a thing to sever people from their deep-seated trauma, and this was like the quote final test, which I have theories on that as well.
Yeah.
Drummond prepares to do a goat sacrifice.
Cool. Sure.
Hey, there's the goats. And if you didn't think the goats were going to be sacrificed at some point, I don't know what to tell you.
Gwendolyn Christie's back. Sure, man.
Gwendolyn Christie shows up and choke slams him. Also in that fight scene, Adam Scott experiences a concussion because he didn't like turn properly. Yeah, and they kept that shot, which is really funny. The funniest thing that comes out of this, so like obviously they capture him, they take him onto the elevator, like we're going down the elevator, let's go.
Yeah.
We all experience this together. That Mark's innie is holding. It's like it's a livestock pistol. So they they load it up so that a big spike shoots out exactly one time before they reset it. It's to kill livestock without using real ammunition. And so he's holding that thing to Drummond's neck, and we're all wondering, how is Audi Mark?
Yeah, how's this gonna happen?
Gonna handle holding a livestock pistol to this large man's throat as he becomes conscious? Fortunately, we didn't really have to find out because he pulled the trigger during the process and wakes up to just blood spilling everywhere.
Because neither of them know how like physically violent flipping back and forth is. Yeah. So like his finger just slipped and was like, oh, there's that.
It also like it goes back to what I said earlier when Mark S. his Audi ends up in a scene of violence and can just scream and point because he gets off that elevator with the spent pistol and just shakes it at that nurse. Yeah, he just shakes that pistol, screaming at her.
Completely empty pistol.
And the whole time, obviously, Milchek is trapped in a bathroom thanks to Helly and Dylan and ultimately a band.
Yep. We get
to the business end of this. Mark S. or Mark's Audi gets to Cold Harbor, uses some of Drummond's blood on his tie to get into the room, which is really good.
Genius.
Gets Gemma to leave. They have their moment in the hallway. Yep. Both of their Audis.
Everyone's butts finally unclench.
Oh my God. And they go to the elevator, and in my mind too, I didn't even think about what happened next.
Yeah, neither did
I'm
I.
like, okay, they're on the elevator, and any Mark will get Gemma. Oh, Gemma's Miss Casey. Gemma's Miss Casey.
So
Forgot about that.
you have any Mark and Miss Casey are in this like
making
embrace,
out.
like Mark S. What has happened?
Yeah.
Or what has taken place?
Yeah, which also during this whole time, we get another "fuck you, Mr. Milchek" from Dylan. So that's 2 for 2 on season endings, where Dylan's last line is "fuck you, Mr. Milchek."
Yeah.
I do hope that the third one is just like "fuck you, Mr. Milchek." Like,
Oh, that would be good.
I want an evolution.
Yeah, that would be good.
Final shot of the season. Any Mark, Miss Casey running down the hallway. He shoves her out the door. She becomes Gemma. Turns around. He's kind of heading towards the hallway, towards the door, and we see Helly in the background.
Oof.
And in that moment, Any Mark chooses to stay inside with Helly while Gemma is like pounding on the door.
Oh, it's rough.
And a lot of people speculated. I'll end the season. Cool.
Let's go.
Run away.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, a lot of people speculated like, well, that's Helena again. That the alarm went off and it triggered Helena. Throw that one in the garbage. I stand by.
Yeah,
that's
I don't like that theory. It is definitely the most prevailing one.
And also, I think that Britt Lower has even said like that's not the case. I think she's even said like
like we're not going to do that trick twice.
No. And my thought is they don't have sympathy for outies. Like, why should they?
Exactly.
And in that moment, like Helly's allowed to do whatever she wants to, and Helly wasn't giving like a mischievous look to Miss Casey. It was more like, oh, you know what? That does suck for you, but you're there, and I'm here, and that's what this is gonna be. And like,
I totally agree. I think she was getting what she wants because they don't know, like they all know that their lives are going to end soon. It could be 5 minutes, it could be 5 hours, but like they don't have a lot of time left.
If Mark's Any went through that door, it was ending real quick.
Yep.
Like if
he would never come back.
And at this point now, with Gemma out there, so presumably, like, God, I assume she's not going to get captured again.
I mean, that would also be so incredibly shitty. Like,
but like, the assumption now is that Gemma and Devin and maybe Cobell are going to like figure out what to do because you've got Dylan. Well, and then Irving is obviously coming back at some point. But now you've got Dylan and Helly and Mark
who are just
in
there.
a pretty volatile situation at Lumen.
Well, they are and they aren't, right? Because this is also kind of the like, there's the three of them in a whole ass marching band. There's a standoff. And just Mr. Milchek and James Egan in a closet somewhere.
In a weird pervert computer closet.
Yeah, but like, there's no security guard. There's the one nurse on the testing floor, but like, Milchek's outnumbered. So like, they're trapped down there, but he's trapped in there with them at this point.
There's definitely this like us versus them because they completed Cold. Oh, here's my other thought. Cold Harbor is supposed to be the test of like, does the barrier hold?
Does the barrier hold? Yep.
If anything, they got their answer because
it does.
Because Mark's Any stayed. Like Mark Audi, he did all of this just to get his wife.
Yep.
Everything in his being was, I need to forget about the trauma that I have with my wife. I can't be part of this anymore. It hurts me every day. And here, his Audi was about to get the thing he wants most out of anything ever. Anything
ever. Watching his real life wife scream and plead for him to just open a door.
Yeah.
And he didn't do it. Yeah, you're right. That's such a better test than Cold Harbor ever was.
Yeah, and not to say like that Lumen planned that, because that's tough to like argue.
But they're sure as hell gonna take credit for it.
Yep. That they figured something out where I mean their weird pervert mural played through because they figured something out because the barrier held that Mark's Any said, nope, I'm gonna stay here. Like
that's so true. That's so right. I totally So what I think let's jump to the Lumen of it all and then the Kier cult of it all, right? So I think it's pretty clear what Lumen is trying to do, which is again just trying to erase pain, right? Like in all sense of the word.
That feels fair because that seems like that stays true to what they started with.
Right.
That seems like that's elevated to what they're doing now. And somewhere along the line, a cult took pretty solid seed, even from the beginning, maybe.
And this is where I think where we get into, because like I think that is the mission that the people like Milchek are in belief of. Like Milchek is very much a means to ends to the means. Like he's a company man. He's like, I'm here to help reduce pain. Like I want to help this cause. Like Mark Scout is a perfect example of this. Is a guy that like his life would be better if we eliminate pain. Now I think somewhere along the line, the Kier cult and the different people within Lumen, like the Gemma doctor guy, like he's just like a fucking weirdo. Like I think he's trying to.
Perv.
I think he's just trying to make weird perverted Westworld. Like I think that's
I think
that's just his thing.
There's absolutely the like you said, the Lumen of it all, the Kier of it all, and then there's like a spectrum of the Kier piece where it's like also you're just a really big pervert. Like, and that's where he lives.
Like he just wants to make Westworld where he can do weird shit to people who can't remember.
Yeah.
Which that's boring and weird and creepy, and I hope they don't move to that.
It's its own thing.
But I think so the numbers are your wife and what you're building, right? Like I think there's an element of, and this goes back to the Kier fanatics who are like, I think that they view Severance as the purest form of consciousness, right? Like, because, and this is where we come with Jaime, and the whole thing with Jaime and Helly is like, Helena is flawed. She's bogged down. Mark Scout is flawed. Dylan is flawed. Helly, Mark S, and Dylan, what's his
Dylan
last?
G.
Dylan G, thank you. They're perfect people. They are the perfect versions of themselves, right? Dylan is this like amazing family man who'll do anything for his wife, do anything for his kids. Mark S is like this leader. He's like, he's the hero. Helly R is the perfect encapsulation of Kier, right? Like, I think that the Kier cult views severed people as the purest expression of humanity, right? So what they're trying to do, so Matt is, I think I'm in line with Matt, and like they're trying to recreate Kier, but they're trying to recreate Kier in the form of severed people. Because I think so I think like the way that this goes to like how they take over the world is, well, if everyone is severed, everyone is the purest version of themselves. That like humanity goes to
definitions.
By our definitions. And by that, we are going to continue to sever people to also find the algorithm, the number, the series of letters that that recreates the perfect, all of the levers that are Kier Egan.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see definitely that being target. Like there's definitely because you said if we are saying that there is some sort of space between Lumen and Kier cult, that both of them can have that same goal.
Yeah, right.
But
you can see how one dovetails to the other.
Yeah, like if the Lumen goal is like a world without pain, we want people to live pain free.
Yep.
You cut down to a very specific, narrow view of that.
What does that mean? What does pain-free mean?
Yeah, and if you even twist it perverted enough to say, we think that Kier Egan was the perfect man who lived by these tenets and, controlled these 4 temperaments, that we'll have everyone control those 4 temperaments and live by these 9 principles. And that is perfection without pain.
Yep.
And you end up in a weird dystopia.
Yeah, exactly. And like I think that's like where this whole test is them getting to their utopia.
Yeah. I think for me, I'm left with questions. So I think that, forecasting into season 3, which they're doing season 3, they haven't said how many more seasons they're going to do.
We know they are doing season 3 for sure.
That,
confirmed.
I think it's pretty obvious this is going to be like an innie versus outie situation to some level.
Yeah. I think we'll definitely see more like Helly confronting Helena, Dylan G confronting Audi Dylan. Like I think we're going to see a lot more of that, like in like Mark and Mark S.
Well, and I think we're also going to see at some point these innies being their outies while still on the severed floor.
Oh,
like,
sure.
We're going to get some weird like Helena, Audi Dylan, and Audi Mark situation.
Well, presumably they have access to the testing floor now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
so there's definitely going to be something there. I do want the answer of like what happened to Gemma. Like,
I have a theory.
Yeah, sure.
So that was like what was going through my mind. It was like, did they just fuck like? Cause so my partner was like, she's a zombie. Because
I wondered for a while. I was like,
she was on the
reanimate a body.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, right? That was what I mean. I think that's where Matt was going too. Is like, are they recreating consciousness? And like again, like anything's fucking possible. But so it was like it goes from like, well, they would have had to like pull her from this car accident. And I'm like, oh no, there was never a car accident.
I don't think
that never happened. Like the fact that obviously
they said
like
the body was burned.
Yeah, they faked her death. So there was never a car accident. So then you have to go to like, well, why the hell? Why this person? Right? Like she's not special. She's just another person. I think it definitely it comes back to Gemma met somebody at some point in the like fertility process who's or after, and because again like some time had passed between the miscarriage and when she eventually went missing, right?
Yeah,
at some point she met somebody and said, I can take your pain away.
Yeah,
and I think that person was Cobell.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I think it was Cobell, and I think that's how they're going to keep Cobell in the story, and why she had such a like particular focus on Mark.
Yeah.
Because I think either she feels guilty or like there's something else we don't know, but like there's some connection between Cobell and Gemma.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
I think there's definitely way more to the Cobell story. There's a lot of really weird theories out there about Rickon. And I can't like what someone was like, Rickon is a goat. And Rickon is a goat because not only does his facial hair look goat beardy, like, but also there's pictures of him like standing on mountains and goats climb mountain. And I like,
that's so dumb.
I can't. I've also read things about how like Devon is a plant. Like Devon is like not like a potted plant, but like
not literally. Yeah,
that she's like also in.
Oh, she's like in the company.
Yeah, like that she's got some like stake in the company business. I don't know, man. Like I see really logical things happening, and then we get the Waffle Party, and then you're like, oh, that's right. Sometimes it's just weird shit.
Sometimes, and that's like it's hard to separate because like Dan Erickson just has a very like peculiar sense of humor. Like sometimes it's just hard to separate. Like sometimes there's just weird shit, and also like companies do weird and dumb stuff all the time that doesn't make any sense.
This is a Hail Mary of not a plot, but like a thing that I think we'll see is so since this has all happened in the matter of like an hour and a half. Like this all went down pretty quick. Yeah. And so we got to presume the Severed Floor is going on lockdown, that like people aren't going to be able to leave.
Yeah, I think that's easy
and
to say,
aside from them ushering out 100 marching band members somehow, because we can't have all those marching band members everywhere. And they've presumably got like a closet on the floor. I think what we will see in season 3 is like a big name casted person from another department.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I can really see like here's multiple other departments, not just like, you know, the one that Bert was in, not just the Mammalia one. Like here are 2 other departments starring A-lister name that we're going to have for the first
Dax
4
Shepard and
episodes.
Kristen Bell's cameos. Yeah, just other
absolutely.
people who love the show.
Like John Hamm is here as like a security guard. Like I think we're gonna see some of that stuff, which is fun. I mean, they definitely bait and switched us with like an alternate team.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, here's new refiners, and then end of the episode, you're like, never mind, they're gone.
No,
they're nothing.
Just JK.
What do you think? Talk briefly about this picture.
Well, I mean, it's the world's largest falls.
It's the world's largest falls.
I don't know. It's insane.
It's wild.
Absolutely insane.
It literally has everyone in it.
Everyone. Even the people from the Waffle Party.
People from the Waffle Party. Rickon's friends. So Rebecca is in this photo.
Yeah.
The weird ghoul that Irv saw in his nightmare.
Yeah. It's literally, I mean, it is an anime opening.
Yeah,
in the strictest sense.
And I don't know what to do with that. Who's commissioning these paintings? Where did this come from?
I mean, and their turnaround time is fast. Their art department is pretty impressive.
Yeah, I love the silliness that they've done in this show. Like everything is
me too.
absurd in such a way that you can't take too long to think about it. Because like exactly
Right.
that. Who put this picture together, and why does it have all these people, and how does it have all these people?
Yeah, they don't exist in the same layer of reality.
Right. So that is, and I can't unpack it because like
Yeah, there's
What do you
nothing
do
to
with
unpack.
that?
It's just completely silly. Grainer looks like a zombie.
yeah.
One other thing I want to mention. So Sharkbait, who commissioned this podcast, this episode, and their partner, both like they're huge Severance fans. They've been since day one, and they were who was like, you got to watch the bill. Like they gave me the pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all watched the finale together, and she was like, at some point, she said, "There's an interesting theory about the state of ether," and going back to the Cabell episode. So she was saying, there's a theory that ether is kind of like the prototype of Severance. So like what Cobell says at one point with the factories is she was basically explains like all those kids were just high on ether the whole time to go and work their 14-hour shifts, right? So theoretically, like they were effectively they were testing the idea, the principles of how to emotionally and mentally sever yourself using ether, which is another way to like remove pain, remove memories and things like that. But then she took it a step further and was like, oh, the whole story of Kier and what was the brother that he killed for Jordan in the woods? Dieter. That they're the same person. That's not a twin brother. That's
he killed
they're the same
that version
person.
of him.
Kier, he killed that version of him.
Oh.
Kier is the severed version of Dieter.
Okay.
By way of ether.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
which I think is pretty interesting. So the idea that's going back to this idea is like Kier was never a person.
Right.
Kier was was the idea, the embodiment, or the like series of these ideals of this person who was just the couple hours that he was really fucking high.
Right. Like I in this case took substances to kill off that side of me.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm not that person. I'm this person.
I think that rules.
Yeah, I can see that. And what not to draw parallels to like religion, but like what a good example of a thing someone did. Then they're like, oh, that's the holy action. That's true. Like that's the truth. That's it. That's not sensationalized at all. That's just true.
That's just true.
And that is our truth now, is that you can kill off the bad version of you to be a perfect version.
Yep.
And now there's weird pervert science with it.
Yep. Now there's weird pervert science with it.
Yeah, I'm pumped for season 3.
Same.
I'm sure as it gets closer, we'll spiral some more.
Yeah.
But with that, I'm going to take us out of this one.
Let's do it.
So thank you everyone again for listening to us. This is fun. Obviously, Andrew and I love this property. You could pick it up from Matt since he's watched a season and a half. He's into it. I'm pretty confident. We get out of these flavor texts and we're always like, are you going to consume that media afterwards? And I'm pretty positive that Kyle's going to consume the media or we'll bully him into it. But anyway, we thank you for sticking with us on Debate This. And also thank you to Sharkbait and his partner for commissioning this episode. If you like this sort of stuff, you can also commission an episode, a flavor text of your favorite property. Just go visit us at patreon.com/debatethiscast. You can follow along anywhere, along with the arguments on Instagram, YouTube, and Patreon, or whatever else we want to be on. It's fine. You know where to find us. And hey, have you ever come to the ending of an episode and found yourself wondering, man, I really like Debate This, and I wish that I had more than 3 out of every 4 Tuesdays each month. I just want more content. Well, I've got great news for you. You can get that. It's called the Debate This Premium Feed. It's available right now through our Patreon. Again, patreon.com/debatethiscast. You can subscribe to at the low price of $5 a month, and it gets you all the current and past episodes of our exclusive Patreon show, Deconstructed, which is a Disney Channel original movie watch-along podcast. We just released one on Can of Worms, which is a
absolute fever dream.
Yeah, fever dream, pervert, sloppy, But someone's kink is that movie. Don't
Yeah.
at us.
Probably the testing room guy. He probably
The
loves
testing
taking
room guy. He was rubbing his hands together as he designed those costumes. Anyway, it's 75% cheaper than your standard issue battle pass. No grinding necessary, less trauma, and less teens making fun of you online. Until next time, I'm Todd Thomas.
And I'm Andrew. Cold Harbor is just code name for Icetown Henderson.
Fucking really good. And we're Icetown Ice Clown. We're saying thanks for debating with us. And if you think we're wrong, you can come fight us behind the swing set, nerds.